Good afternoon. This is Vice Chair Emery Young presiding on behalf of the chair. I call to order the meeting of the Board of Education of Baltimore County for Tuesday, August 11, 2026. This evening's board meeting is being broadcast through BCPS Online Live Meeting Broadcast and on BCPS-TV, Comcast Xfinity Channel 1073, Verizon Fios Channel 34. In order to efficiently conduct this meeting, all voting items this evening will be done by roll call vote. May I have a motion to go into closed session as permitted by the Open Meetings Act as found in the Annotated Code of Maryland, General Provisions, Article 3-305, B1, B7, and B8 to 1, discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom it has jurisdiction, or any other personnel matters that affect one or more specific individuals, consult with counsel to obtain legal advice, and consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals about pending or potential litigation.
So moved, Tribaji.
Is there a second?
Second, Pumphrey.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Pumphrey?
Yes.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes.
Mr. McMillian?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Frempong?
Trying to be
Yes.
Ms. Henn?
I'm trying to keep it.
Ms. Tribaji?
Yes.
Ms. Dominowski? Ms. Delusky?
Yes.
Dr. Savoy?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Good evening. This is Vice Chair Emery Young presiding on behalf of the chair. I now call to order the meeting of the Board of Education of Baltimore County for Tuesday, August 11, 2026. I invite you to recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag led by Ms. Claire Jabaji. We will then have a moment of silence in recognition of those who have served education in Baltimore County.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Tonight's Board of Education meeting is being broadcast through BCPS Online live meeting broadcast and on BCPS-TV, Comcast Xfinity Channel 1073, Verizon Fios Channel 34. In order to efficiently conduct this meeting, all voting items this evening will be done by roll call vote. The first item on the agenda is the consideration of the August 11th agenda. Dr. Heiser, are there any additions or changes to tonight's agenda?
I am unaware of any additions or changes to tonight's agenda.
Hearing none, the agenda stands as presented.
So I'd like to move to add an item to the agenda. I believe it can be done by a majority vote.
We've already,
I move to amend the agenda to include a reconsideration of the June 9th report on Puzzle Pieces Learning Academy.
Second, Pumphrey.
can you put that in the chat, please? Mr. Fitzpatrick, is your motion to reconsider the report or the board's action?
Would be the board's action.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I already seconded, Ms. Pumphrey.
Is there any discussion? Ms. Henn?
One question for Mr. Fitzpatrick as to where he would like to place the item on the agenda. And I would suggest as between items, current items J and K, unless he had a preference.
I have no preference.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, may I have a roll call vote, please, Ms. Gover?
Ms. Pumphrey?
Yes.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes.
Mr. McMillion?
Yes.
Ms. Frempong?
Yes.
Ms. Henn?
Yes.
Ms. Jabaji?
Yes.
Ms. Dominowski?
Yes.
Ms. Delusky?
Yes.
Dr. Savoy?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Thank you.
The revised, now we need to vote on the revised agenda. No? Keep moving. All right. All right. Then the revised agenda is approved as presented. Earlier this evening, the board met in closed session pursuant to the Open Meetings Act for the following reasons. To one, discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom it has jurisdiction, and any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals. Consult with counsel to obtain legal advice, and consult with staff, consultants, and other individuals about pending or potential litigation. The closed session summary and open session information summary can be found on board docs under this board meeting agenda date. The next item on the agenda is personnel matters, and for that, I call on Mr. McCall.
Good evening, Chair Lichter in her absence, Vice Chair Young, Superintendent Dr. Heiser, and members of the board. I'd like the board's consent for the following personnel matters. Tonight we have retirements, resignations, and leaves.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the personnel matters as presented in exhibits D1 through D3?
So moved, Jabaji.
Do I have a second?
Second, Savoy.
Any discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Pumphrey?
Yes.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes.
Mr. McMillion?
Yes.
Ms. Frempong?
Yes.
Ms. Henn?
Yes.
Ms. Jabaji?
Yes.
Ms. Dominowski?
Yes.
Ms. Delusky?
Yes.
Dr. Savoy?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr.
Now the time for me to ask Mr. McCall the questions that I wanted to pose earlier.
Trace? Go right ahead.
Mr. McCall, so we had X number of teachers that were accessed back in the spring. We placed a lot of those teachers. So I understand you don't have an exact number at the present time you're seated there of how many teachers were not placed in teacher positions. However, they're, right?
They're all placed in teacher positions.
Okay. Now, it's my understanding that some of them were assigned to schools, and the principal was given the authority to give them assigned duties accordingly. Is that a misrepresentation to me?
So those teachers are actually who have been placed, I think what you're referring to, those priority transfer teachers who actually did not have a specific content area assignment, those are academic support teachers. That is correct.
Okay. And then it's so we don't have an accurate number for that group right there, right now.
Not at present, not at this moment. I
Okay.
don't have that number.
So those were assigned for academic support to middle schools, high schools, even elementary schools?
Keep in mind, these are actually, when a Division of Human Resources actually work with the Department of Schools, with the executive directors of the Department of Schools, based upon the needs of the schools, those individuals were placed at those individual schools, but not at the elementary level, all were at the secondary level.
Okay. And am I correct that the principals were given the authority to assign them, for lack of a better word, duties?
There were guidelines.
Duty's
around-
not a good word for that.
Well, there were guidelines around the support they were given for instance, credit recovery for Spark, for pullouts, for academic support, for co-teaching in that area. Yes.
Okay. And I was told back in the middle of July, end of July, it was 27. So chances are it's a number less than that.
Very well could be.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. McCall.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is administrative appointments, and for that, I call on Dr. Heiser.
Thank you, Vice Chair Young and members of the board. I'm bringing to your attention the following administrative appointments for your approval. Chief of Staff, Chief Operating Officer, General Counsel, Director, Special Programs and Grants, Principal, Windsor Mill Middle School, Supervisor, College, Career and Technical Education, Manager, Investigations and Record Management, Assistant Principal, Dundalk Elementary School, Assistant Principal, Westtown Elementary School, Assistant Principal, Deep Creek Middle School, Assistant Principal, Warren Elementary School, Specialist, Board Certified Behavior Analyst, those are 3 positions. And lastly, Specialist, Science, Technology, and Engineering and Mathematics, 2 positions.
Do I have a motion to approve the administrative appointments as presented in Exhibit E1?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second, Jabaji.
Any discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Pumphrey?
Yes.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes.
Mr. McMillian?
Yes.
Ms. Frempong?
Yes.
Ms. Henn?
Yes.
Ms. Jabaji?
Yes.
Ms. Dominowski? Ms. Stoleski?
Yes.
Dr. Savoy?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Heiser?
Thank you. This is although the entire evening's kind of enjoyable, this is the most enjoyable. Please join me in congratulating those that were just approved. Please join me in congratulating Molly Callanan, who is being appointed as manager in the Office of Investigation and Records Management. She's here today with her fiance, with more than 11 years of experience. Molly recently served as Human Resource Specialist in the Office of Investigation and Records Management. Congratulations. Please join me in congratulating Evan Campbell, who is being appointed as Principal, Windsor Mill Middle School. She is here today with her mother. Welcome, Mom. With more than 11 years' experience, Evan has recently served as Assistant Principal, Windsor Mill Middle School. Congratulations. Please join me in congratulating Tiffany Frazier, who is being appointed as Director of the Department of Special Programs and Grants. And she is here today with her husband. With more than 15 years' experience, Tiffany recently served as the coordinator in the Department of Special Programs and Grants. Congratulations. Please join me in congratulating Cynthia Greenberg, who is being appointed as Assistant Principal at Dundalk Elementary School. She is here today with her children. With more than 24 years of experience, Cynthia recently served as a mathematics teacher at Catonsville High School. Congratulations. Please join me in congratulating Kathleen Hernandez, who is being appointed as Assistant Principal at Westtown Elementary School. She is here today with her husband. With more than 20 years of experience, Kathleen recently served as Specialist in the Department of Literacy and Humanities. Congratulations. Please join me in congratulating Erin Lee, who is being appointed as Assistant Principal at Deep Creek Middle School. She is here today with her husband and son, who is a student at Glenmar Elementary School. With more than 14 years' experience, Erin recently served as classroom teacher at Kenwood High School. Congratulations. Join me in congratulating Kylie Mason, who is being appointed as Specialist Board Certified Behavior Analyst in the Department of Special Education. She is here today with a guest. With more than 4 years of experience, Kylie joins BCPS from Little Leaves Behavior Services, where she recently served as the Supervising Behavior Analyst. Congratulations and welcome to BCPS. Please join me in congratulating Caitlin McGarvey, who is being appointed as Specialist in the Department of Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. She is here today with her husband. With more than 16 years of experience, Caitlin recently served as elementary classroom teacher at Battle Grove Elementary School. Congratulations, Caitlin. Please join me in congratulating Scott McGuire, who is being appointed today as Chief Operating Officer in the Division of Operations. He is here today with his wife and children. With more than 19 years of experience, Scott joins BCPS from Anne Arundel County Public Schools, where they recently served as Executive Director, Human Capital Management. Congratulations and welcome to BCPS. Please join me in congratulating Daniel Murphy, who is being appointed as Supervisor in the Office of College, Career, Technical Education. He is here today with his wife. I had an opportunity to meet them out front. With more than 11 years of experience, Daniel recently served as CTE Career Navigator at Eastern Technical High School. Congratulations. And please join me in congratulating Mandy Park, who is being appointed as Specialist Board Certified Behavior Analyst in the Department of Special Education. She is here today with her daughter. With more than 16 years of experience, Mandy joins BCPS from Little Leaves Behavior Services, where they recently served as Supervising Behavior Analyst. Congratulations and welcome to BCPS. And please join me in congratulating Sarah Thompson, who is being appointed as Specialist in the Department of Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. She is here today with her husband with more than 20 years of experience. Sarah recently served as Staff Development Teacher at Perry Hall Middle School. Congratulations. There are 4 others, but they're not in attendance this evening. They had prior conflicts. Please join me in congratulating Jessica Cutchess, who is being appointed as Chief of Staff in the Office of the Chief of Staff. With more than 20 years of experience, Jessica joins BCPS from Anne Arundel County Public Schools, where she recently served as the Chief Human Resources Officer. Congratulations and welcome to BCPS to Jessica. Please join me in welcoming Sarah Maglov, who is being appointed as Assistant Principal at Warren Elementary School. With more than 15 years of experience, Sarah recently served as Special Education Teacher at Joppa View Elementary School. Congratulations to Sarah. Please join me in congratulating Melissa Rawls, who is being appointed as General Counsel in the Office of Law. With more than 15 years of experience, Melissa joins BCPS from Anne Arundel County Public Schools, where she recently served as Staff Counsel. Congratulations and welcome to BCPS, Melissa. And last but certainly not least, please join me in congratulating Allison Seidman, who is being appointed Specialist Board Certified Behavior Analyst in the Department of Special Education. With more than 10 years of experience, Allison joins BCPS from St. Elizabeth's School, where she recently served as BCBA Behavior Support. Congratulations and welcome not only to her, but to everyone, BCPS. Thank you.
Our next item is public comment. This is one of the opportunities the board provides to hear the views and receive the advice of community members. If not selected to address the board, members of the public may submit their comments to the board members via email at boe@bcps.org. The Baltimore County Police Department's Homeland Security Unit and Office of School Safety has recommended safety and security protocols, which are posted in the boardroom and available in board docs, and on the board's participation by the public website. While we encourage public input on policy, programs, and practices within the purview of this board and this school system, this is not the proper forum to address student or employee matters or to comment on matters that do not relate to public education in Baltimore County. Inappropriate personal remarks or other behavior, such as language that promotes violence against a BCPS employee or that disrupts or interferes with the conduct of this meeting, are out of order and will not be tolerated. Persons who otherwise disrupt or disturb this meeting will not be allowed to continue their remarks and will be escorted from the meeting. Please observe the 3-minute clock, which will let you know when your time is up. The microphone will be turned off at the end of your time or prior to that time at the discretion of the board chair. I now call on our school system affiliated groups to speak. Our first speaker is Edwin Perez.
Good evening, members of the board, Vice Chair Young, and Superintendent Dr. Heiser. My name is Edwin Perez, speaking on behalf of the PTA Council of Baltimore County, as Chair of the Multilingual Community Partnership and the Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Committee. As we launch our new Baltimore County PTA Council initiative called PTA Activate this year, our goal is to support every student. This honors our national PTA standards, welcoming all families and communicating effectively. But true equity means addressing where the gaps are greatest, and right now there is a gap when supporting our multilingual and immigrant students. To bridge this gap, we ask BCPS to focus on 3 direct areas. First, we must continue to promote the seal of biliteracy and SEL, social emotional learning. Let's continue to partner to expand access and incentives for the Maryland Seal of Biliteracy, framing bilingualism as a major academic asset. Alongside academics, we must prioritize social-emotional learning by strategically deploying multilingual staff and EL counselors. Second, we must continue to engage families and protect safe zones. Authentic engagement means families meeting where families feel they are safe in accessible community spaces. Aligned with BCPS Policy 1250 and district safe zone commitments, we must ensure our schools remain welcoming, protective spaces where immigrant and mixed status families feel secure, valued, and connected. Third, we must continue to safeguard learning and support teachers. Preventing academic learning loss requires targeted multilingual resources and supporting staff. When those resources are missing, students fall behind. Protecting these learning opportunities safeguards both student achievement and educator well-being. The new BCPS vision of excellence relies on high expectations and strong community partnerships. By holding Policy 1250, protecting our immigrant and mixed status families, and investing in multilingual success, we can make that vision a reality for all BCPS students. Thank you for your leadership and ongoing partnership.
Next are our union partners, and I call on Kelly Oles, President of TABCO.
Good evening, Vice Chair Young, Dr. Heiser, and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. The new school year is nearly here as the summer winds down. With new board members, new leaders, and new students, we know it's a busy time. There are a few things that I want to make sure are all moving in the right direction. Last spring, together, we created and passed Board Policy 1250, making clear what should and should not happen regarding immigration enforcement in our schools. This was a big win and an example of union and community collaboration with board leadership. Since this success, we have new leadership. While we don't yet have a rule, school is about to start, and the policy calls for training for staff. I hope that we can work together to ensure that something is in place when 10-month staff returns. TABCO is here to help make that happen. Tonight, there will likely be conversation on secondary library media specialists and the requirement for them to teach classes. TABCO supports library media specialists and actions that allow them to serve the role and fulfill the responsibilities that they are trained for and were hired to do. They cannot do this while they are also planning for, teaching, and grading assignments for lessons for courses outside of this work. Though this has been a hot topic since the budget passed, there has not been resolution. While I know a late course correction could create some headaches as we are up against the calendar with last-minute changes, I also know, that having full-time library and media specialists in this designated role is how we can best support our students. Also, Nottingham Middle School is on the agenda tonight. As you know, there has been a great deal of advocacy for the school to receive the resources that they deserve. We stand with these educators calling for BCPS to take appropriate actions that are possible to bring these resources to that school. As an educator for over 20 years, the beginning of the school year always brings excitement with new students, new programs, new educators, and this year, even a new superintendent. This is a time to remember the work that we do and the impact that this work has on our students and communities. We help make better futures for our students. And when educators feel respected, when we are listened to, and when resources go to the schoolhouse and classrooms as much as possible, we are better able to serve our kids. Let's remember that as we head into this new school year and into our bargaining cycle. Thank you, and let's finish the summer strong.
Thank you, Ms. Olds. Next are nonprofit community groups. Our first speaker is Monica Mugnier. Monnier.
So thank you for this opportunity to speak. I am the parent of a soon-to-be first grader and a member of Schools Beyond Screen County. And you can add me to the list of kindergarten parents who had an awful experience with Laura, but I know we've heard that story a lot recently, so I'm not going to talk about that. Instead, I want to talk about my experiences as an educator. So I'm an associate professor of molecular microbiology and immunology at the Hopkins School of Public Health. And to be clear, I'm speaking as an individual and not on behalf of the university. But I wanted to tell you guys about a parasitology course that we teach in my department that I've been involved in for the past 10 years or so, and which I now co-direct. And so in that course, we have students look in a microscope with a pencil in their hand, and they draw what they see in a notebook. These are PhD level students in a highly technical field receiving pen and paper instruction. And this is completely intentional on our part. We teach them this way because they learn better this way. So this may sound like an anecdote, but the data support this instructional choice. There is evidence that students who read on paper have better comprehension than students who read the same material on a screen. There's evidence that students who take notes, handwritten notes, are more likely to get an A, and students who take notes on a laptop are more likely to fail. So those are just a couple of examples, but I want to emphasize that one reason that this kind of teaching is so effective is because it's distraction-free. We're not putting students in front of a box containing the entirety of human knowledge and asking them to ignore it, right? And so in fact, in another class, I completely banned screens for students, barring specific accommodations. And when I tell them at the beginning of the term that they can't use a device, they're relieved, right? We are all constantly fighting against the pull of these devices. And to highlight that, I think you can look around this room and see how many phones are out, right? This is a problem that we all have. And so I share this my experiences here because if we want to achieve the culture of excellence that Dr. Heiser has talked about, and as a professional academic, I'm all about academic excellence, we must ensure that our students are getting the best instruction. And so as a representative of Schools Beyond Screens, we are thrilled that you guys are developing a policy around screens and tech in school, and our ask today is this. When you construct that policy, please set the bar high. When tech and screens are used in school, there must be evidence that they are at least as good as in-person, face-to-face, pen and paper, human-to-human instruction. Otherwise, we're compromising the quality of our students' education, and we will not be able to build the culture of excellence that we're striving for. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dr. Barbara Desmond. Okay, we'll move on to our next speaker, Ms. Lynn Longs.
Good evening, Dr. Heiser, Vice Chair Young, and board members and new board members. On behalf of the Baltimore County Chapter of Continental Societies, congratulations, Dr. Heiser. We are excited about your leadership and the future of our children. My name is Lynn Loings. I'm the Public Relations Officer for Baltimore County Chapter and the National Historian of Continental Societies, Inc. We are celebrating 70 years of serving children since 1956. We started in the Virgin Islands. We are proud to continue our partnership with the Baltimore County Schools. Our children, our commitment, our concern. We believe every child deserves the opportunity to learn, grow, excel, and succeed academically, socially, emotionally, and creatively. The Continental Societies, we have a program called HER, Health, Education, Employment, Recreation, and Arts and Humanities programs. We support BCPS students and families with school supplies, educational activities, health and wellness initiatives, community outreach, and programs that encourage children to reach their full potential. Dr. Heiser, our chapter president, Michelle McCoy-Jones, had the pleasure of meeting you at the BCPS Partnership Fair, where we had a display table. This fair is an excellent opportunity for us to partner with schools, leaders, and provide support where it's needed. Your commitment to academic excellence, community engagement, and partnerships speak directly to what we believe. When we are united, schools, families, educators, and community partners can create environments where children can excel in every area of education and become confident, prepared, and citizens of tomorrow. I want to thank Dr. Heiser and the board for continuing to support, being able to support BCPS. And we are very excited because it's 50 members, and we are far and little, but we raise a lot of money to support our children. I have a daughter at Towson State University who is a speech pathology major, and she is a senior right now, and so she is excited, and I'm excited, and I know that we're going to do great things together as one. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next category are individual citizens or students, and our first speaker is Deirdre Wisman.
I have an exhibit for the board. Is that something I can just share? Or-
Hand it to the gentleman behind you.
Good evening. Welcome, Dr. Heiser and members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. My name is Deirdre Wisman, and I'm here as a parent with a very personal, I guess, anecdote and story to share with you that I think is reflective of many parents in the district. As I mentioned, I'm the parent of 3 Baltimore County Public School students, one who's a rising 7th grader in middle school and 2 are in elementary school. So first, I want to thank you. I appreciate, as I've seen meaningful progress that BCPS has made in reducing screen use in the elementary school level. And that's over the course of my first child being in kindergarten during COVID all the way up through 7th grade, and so I commend you. I've seen a much greater emphasis on books, handwriting, teacher-led instruction, and I am thrilled that the district has made these steps that will really benefit our elementary school students. I also recognize that during COVID, technology was a lifeline, and frankly an essential one, and I appreciated the district's prompt reaction to getting devices into every student's hands to continue education during an unprecedented public health crisis. I also commend our teachers for adapting during that unprecedented time as well. But the reason I'm here today is truly that emergency is past, thank goodness. We now have a responsibility and the opportunity to ask, really, what learning environment best serves our students today in BCPS? And this issue is extremely personal for myself as well as my family. When my oldest child entered middle school last year, he was issued a device that was intended to support his education. Instead, I watched that device unintentionally give him a level of autonomy and access that middle school students, for the most part, are simply not prepared to manage. His teachers repeatedly reported to me that he was distracted on his device during class. He and his friends had learned to bypass county restrictions, turning school-issued Chromebooks into portals not just to education, but to games, entertainment, and inappropriate content. My son, within the walls of a BCPS school, was exposed to ways to circumvent county IT restrictions and even accessed pornographic websites. The technology intended to support learning was too often competing with it during the school day. And the issue really goes far beyond inappropriate content. Today, much of BCPS learning centers around Schoology. My son didn't have any physical textbooks, and his assignments, instructional materials, classwork, and homework were completed solely online. My point being, convenience and really the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic should not replace learning, even for our middle and high school students. So tonight, I'm asking BCPS to move away in the short and long term from screen-dependent instruction. Long term, my ask is that BCPS reevaluate screen use in middle and high schools, restoring physical textbooks, paper-based assignments, and teacher-led instruction as the default, with technology used really when it's a clear educational advantage. But we don't need to wait until next year to make these changes. I believe that some immediate actions can be taken. One, empowering our principals to limit recreational screen time, ensuring schools are fully resourced with non-digital materials, and providing parents a meaningful way to opt out of Chromebook use, and by investing in Chromebook carts day to day. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is James Frank. anyone else wants to review that, then that's it. I'm sorry, sir, there's one thing on the top that's for me. Thank you, appreciate that. I think there's 2 other copies of that on the top. Just gonna wait until everyone's got this. You can proceed. Okay, I just want to make sure everyone can see what I'm talking about as I'm discussing it. Okay, good evening, President, board members, and superintendent. Good to see you again. I'm a 3rd-generation educator who wrote and taught high school science biology curricula for the BCPS system in the early 2000s. I'm also the first in my family to decide it's time to pull the plug. We're leaving for private school this fall. Why? Last year, I watched my children's grades collapse in middle school. The handout you're looking at right now shows you how constant access to school-issued Chromebooks had a lot to do with it. The same device containing their schoolwork offered games, YouTube, Google Docs, and other shared digital workspaces that were used as surreptitious social platforms, and AI-generated answers. Around October, I asked their teachers why they were failing. Every single one said the same thing. It's the computers. So we took them away and asked for paper and pencil instead. We did this 3 times over their 6th grade year for both boys, and a pattern emerged. Computers, D's and E's. Paper, A's and B's. 3 times. But getting the work on paper was surprisingly difficult. Sometimes they were sent across the school to retrieve printouts and missed the lesson. Other times, paper versions weren't provided at all. They became zeros that the department chair eventually just excused. But I didn't want excuses. I wanted my kids to do the work. I wanted my kids to learn. So I asked another question. That's where we are tonight. What were they actually doing on these computers all day? And this exhibit contains my son's actual BCPS device activity. You'll see him copying entire math problems into Google to get answers. On his Chromebook, he was getting nearly 100% of his math work correct. Then he took the unit exam and scored a 48. I asked the teacher, could he simply be Googling the answers? And of course she said, yes. But with so many screens to monitor, she never caught it. You'll also see games, memes, Minecraft, movies, inappropriate searches, Google generating his writing, and legitimate schoolwork. And that's the point. That's exactly the point. The problem isn't that these computers can be used or can't be used for education. The problem is that education has to compete with everything else these machines do. So, why does an internet-connected device, general-purpose computer, need to be continuously accessible to a 12-year-old to get his educational experience? You don't have to take my word for this. Superintendent Heiser has told us he needs data. This is your data, sir. So, you have 1 device worth out of more than 100,000. If you filter their internet access like you do, you record the activity, you can analyze this data that you already have. Then, when parents, teachers, and administrators tell you your kids are and do it quickly, because my family can leave, you have thousands of families that cannot. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Frank. Our next speaker is Bosch Ferrone.
Good evening. Congratulations, Mr. Young, for winning the vice chair position. Mr. Young, you are an honorable man, a gentleman, and you are my vice chair and my brother. However, my talk to you today, to the board members, when you made the vote last month, what was the accomplishments that made you choose a leader. And I sincerely, beside the gentleman part of it, the honorable part of it, I don't see anything. Actually, Mr. Young has voted to censure Maggie a year ago, which has been overturned by the Maryland State Department of Education, has voted to cancel the most important committee in the board, the budget committee. And for the most of it, rarely you would see that Mr. Young would make comments or would make new ideas outside the box. Why am I saying this to you? Because we have a new superintendent, new hopes that the school system will get out of the rut that it has been, and I have been watching for more than 25 years. We celebrate 1.1 improvement as if it is really a great improvement. It is really not. It's not really significant. And when you choose your leader next December, you should be wise. You should choose the leader that make a positive change. I'm also surprised how many people talking about pencils and screen time. I have not really written a prescription for 5 years on paper. I have not written one patient note for 10 years on paper. The world is artificial intelligence. The world is laptops, computers. I buy my books online, not on paper. And I think if you want to move the school system, you have to be artificial intelligence oriented. You have to be computer oriented. The problems of screen time is in the family and friends, not in the school system. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ferrone. Our next speaker is Catherine Holden.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Heiser. My name is Catherine Holden. I am the parent of 3 children in BCPS, 1 heading into 7th grade and 2 in elementary school. My oldest child transferred to BCPS in 4th grade and was initially placed in standard math. About halfway through the year, his teacher reached out to share he should be placed in advanced academics. She worked with him for the rest of the year to complete the content he needed to be on level with the advanced math group. She did this with a workbook, consistent paper and pencil work, and regular homework. He went on to 5th grade, was placed in advanced math, and excelled. His teacher relied heavily on paper and pencil worksheets and regular homework. Showing his process and his work was just as important as getting the final answer. He consistently scored A's on his unit assessments. You can imagine my surprise when middle school began and the first math unit test scores came in. C, C, D, C, even an E. I reached out to his teacher, concerned he wasn't paying attention in class. She confirmed that he was. So I asked about homework. There was none. I was told that assignments were completed in class, as were minor assessments. These were completed on the computer and were primarily multiple choice. There was no process to show and no work that had to be demonstrated. The cognitive demand was reduced to clicking a button. Students could also resubmit these assessments up to 3 times. Not surprisingly, my son regularly got A's on these minor assessments. He had learned to be very good at re-clicking the button to get the correct answer, but he continued to fail his unit tests. I asked to have access to his tests so I could see where he was struggling and help him. I was told that the tests were secure documents. The students do not get their tests back. There is no opportunity to review mistakes, reflect on the process, or close the loop between assessment and learning. We asked his teacher for homework, hard copy, paper and pencil homework that mirrored what he was doing in class. Completing this work with him was a struggle, but it was also incredibly revealing. He had a low tolerance for sustained attention to task. He rushed. He didn't check his work when given multiple choice questions. His first instinct was not to solve the problem, but instead try to determine which answers he could eliminate and then choose what seemed closest from what remained. He was learning to navigate the test rather than demonstrate the math because he is not required to demonstrate his process. He only has to click a button on a computer. I share this story because I believe it's a microcosm of what is happening for our children due to our over-reliance on screens for teaching and assessments in lieu of paper and pencil tools that require the cognitive process that leads to true learning. I know this board has already shown its support for challenging how screens are used in BCPS, and I commend you all on your unanimous support for Ms. Dominowski's motion to create a screen use policy. The challenge now is how to create a policy that is specific and granular enough to shift the learning paradigm back to primary paper and pencil learning and technology use only when it's intentional and evidence-based to provide a meaningful benefit.
Thank you, Ms. Holden. We're going to circle back, go to our nonprofit community groups, and have Ms. Barbara Desmond.
Good evening, Board Chair, members of the Board, and Superintendent Heiser. First, thank you, Dr. Heiser, for meeting with the League of Women Voters. Tonight I'm speaking on behalf of the Baltimore County League. However, I'm also currently educational advisor to the Maryland Western Quad of the NAACP. I'm speaking about data. As many of you know, I was in central office for years and helped design how data would be presented for fairness and equity. Although the recent list of test scores and related press from MSDE speak to raised achievement levels, the data must be examined closely. Data should not be viewed from a narrow or static perspective. It should cover a broad range of areas related to student achievement. It is critical that leaders inside the district as well as community are provided with the scope of data on which to base crucial decisions and actions in the interest and welfare of students. Documents which I have sent to the board and superintendent are samples of data reports related to students' academic status in Baltimore County Public Schools, which at one time were continuously provided to faculties and staff. Basically, this type of information should be provided on a regular basis, now and in the future. Data about children should not be sanitized, withheld from the public, or privileged information, or presented in a manner that only a statistician would understand. The public also needs to remain aware of how data are being fed to them. For instance, we should keep in mind that a rise of 6 percentage points as recently reported with math proficiency from 21 to 27% still signifies that 73% of students who received educational services are not proficient. When we're looking at data, I also consider one of the reviews in the book of Failure Factory. It states, the failure is not accidental. It is constructed, maintained, and for far too long tolerated. Too often, some allow the blame to be placed on teachers, parents, or children themselves, but the fault does not lie with those individuals. It starts higher. You are a board, and the gravest of your responsibilities, perhaps of any in the history of this county. Therefore, my advice to the board and the superintendent is don't wait for answers. Ask the questions and seek the answers. Get the data right. For many of these students now, we are no longer looking at just a quality of life matter. We are looking at a matter of life and death for the system and the children. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Desmond. Our final speaker for individual citizens or students is Abigail Brines.
Good evening, Vice Chair Young, Superintendent Heiser, and esteemed board members. My name is Abby Brines, and I am a senior at Carver Center. In the past 2 years, I have seen the usage of AI in the classroom growing at exponential rates. Not only is AI being used inappropriately by students at times, but it has also started to be promoted by teachers who desire to use AI in, quote, an effective educational way. Though the argument that AI may be around for a while and will find its way into many workplaces is valid, the classroom has never been an appropriate place for AI tools. I had firsthand experience with AI teaching this past school year in my pre-calculus class through a system called Goblins. The Goblin system is designed to generate questions and then slowly walk the student through how to complete the problem. Though the app provided opportunity for students to practice math skills, it spread discourse and laziness throughout the classroom. We were asked to use Goblins as our primary tool for studying before numerous unit tests as well as our final exam. Since we were being tested on paper, the transition from studying online to writing our answers physically was not smooth and resulted in lower assessment grades than usual for the majority of the class. Additionally, many students were able to avoid doing the assigned work as the program did not show our progress or solving process to our teacher, meaning there was no way to check that we actually completed the work. Students were also encouraged to ask Goblins their questions before consulting a teacher. This poses a major question. If the AI chat could help with the confusion, what is the point of a teacher? This is where education becomes dismantled. Real-life connection between a student and a teacher is invaluable. A teacher is empathetic, experienced, and educated enough to not only answer questions in a way that push the student to think, but to form a relationship with their student that helps them to grow as a person. As students, we are who we are because of our teachers. Again, my voice as a representative of my peers is that AI stands in the way of problem solving and perseverance, as well as drive, passion, and creativity, all skills that are developed in the classroom. AI may have a place in the world, but it is not in our math classes or our schools altogether. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report, and for that I call on Dr. Heiser.
Thank you, Vice Chair Young and members of the board. It's great to be with you again this evening, and thank you to all out there joining us. Next slide, please. I'd like to first begin by pointing in the direction of our Back to BCPS campaign. It's underway. Thank you to our communications team, but we have many resources, information, videos, and a lot available on that webpage. So I encourage the public to seek that out. There's lots of great stuff there. We're excited about that campaign. Next slide, please. Once again, back to BCPS. Are you ready? We have our BCPS Fest coming up on Saturday, August the 22nd from 11 to 1. It's at Newtown High School and again in Owings Mills, and so I encourage all to join us. Lots of community-based programs and services, hands-on activities, and I'm told it'll be my first BCPS Fest, but I'm told that it's the best event out there. So I'll be there and excited to join everyone and look forward to meeting so many people with 60-plus vendors and food trucks and all sorts of activities from all of our schools and mascots. So please join us, and I look forward to that. Next up, I'd like to provide a bit of a staffing update. This is still a work in progress, and I'd like to offer my thanks to our entire team, specifically, though, our HR and recruitment team. They've done a fabulous job. Their work continues, I know, over the next 3 weeks. They're pushing hard. Current vacancies stand at 72.8. They've hosted 4 summer hiring events with more than 1,000 attendees. And we have 167 schools right now that have 2 or fewer vacancies, and 118 of those schools are fully staffed. The goal, obviously, is to be fully staffed. Want to make sure I point out on the right side of this, you see the orange chart there. In terms of 0 vacancies, we have 118, 68% of our schools at the moment. We obviously are pushing to get that as close to 100% as we can. 2 or less vacancies, you see the breakdown there, 32 elementary schools and 17 secondary schools with a total of 49 schools. Again, we're pushing hard to make sure we decrease those teacher record of vacancies by level. Okay. And then next we have just a few schools, just a handful that have more than 2 vacancies and just 1 school that's more than 4 vacancies. Obviously, we are pushing hard. Again, I want to thank our HR team. We want to make sure that every classroom is staffed and we're ready to go for school. And so again, 3 weeks left. Look forward to making sure the board continues to get updated on those numbers, as I know they're very important to all of us. Next is an operations update. 54 active construction sites this summer. That's a busy summer, and I'd like to thank our operations team for the work that they're doing. Again, they continue to push hard. The rain does not help. Every time we have a downpour, just think of that. Sometimes the work may have to stop. But they continue on. There are 3 major projects that are opening August 31st, Landown High School, looking forward to that school, Deer Park Elementary School, and Dundalk High School with the addition there. So beautiful new additions there. Actively building Towson High School and at Dulaney High School. So that work continues. 44 projects are systemic projects, which make up roofs, parking lots, open space, conversions, HVAC, electrical. So 44 is a lot of projects happening at one time, and thank you again to the team. Again, we have more than 360,000 meals that have been served this summer through our summer meals program, so thank you to our food nutrition team. They do fantastic work, unsung heroes, and thank you for the work they're doing this summer in terms of making sure that people have food this summer. And the Department of Transportation, they'll run close to 700 bus routes this year. They're geared up and ready again for the school year, and we're excited about that. Lastly, I just want to mention, and I really want to thank all the public and our board members and public officials who came out to support all of the listening sessions that I did as superintendent. We visited 6 sites. You see those listed there. We were in every part of this county, which made it accessible for many. That's not the only opportunity to listen. Of course, I'm meeting with many, many groups and people and individuals, and I can't wait for our students to return so I can begin listening closely to them as well. We did have a transition team as well that was announced, and there is no perfect number for that transition team, and that doesn't mean if they weren't selected that you're not being listened to. Lots of opportunities, but once again, thank you to all our board members and to the public for coming out, leaning in, and sharing those things that are really going well in our school system, those things where we can continue to work together to improve culture, and areas that are in need of our guidance and support. That concludes my report. Thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. Heiser. The next item on the agenda is the chair's report. As we begin the month of August and look ahead to the opening of schools on August 31st, we want to extend our sincere appreciation to our community for your engagement and partnership. Your attendance and thoughtful input during the recent Meet the Superintendent events were invaluable. These conversations will help shape our priorities, and your willingness to participate demonstrates the strength and commitment of our BCPS community. The Board of Education has now established its committees for the 2026-2027 school year, and the updated calendar is available on our website. I want to thank our committee chairs and members for continuing their leadership or stepping into these roles. We also want to recognize and thank our staff across the system who are working tirelessly this summer to prepare our schools for opening day, from facilities and operations to curriculum, transportation, food services, and school-based teams. Your efforts ensure that our students will return to safe, welcoming, and well-prepared learning environments. We deeply appreciate the commitment you bring to this work. A note of gratitude goes to our new superintendent, who has truly hit the ground running during his first several weeks in BCPS. His energy, curiosity, and commitment to listening has been evident as he engages with families, staff, and community partners. We appreciate the thoughtful approach he is taking to understanding the strength, needs, and daily operations of our system, and we look forward to continued collaboration ahead. This includes reviewing our respective roles in various processes and procedures the system uses for governance and operations, and working to ensure they meet a rigid and rigorous standard that our families and children deserve. We want to warmly welcome the new educators and staff joining BCPS this year. We are excited to greet you on August 17th during the new educator orientation and to support you as you begin your journey with us. Your decision to bring your talents to BCPS means so much, and we are eager to see the impact you will have on our students and schools. As we move toward the start of the school year, we remain grateful for the dedication of our staff, the engagement of our families, and the leadership of our board and superintendent. Together, we are building a strong foundation for a successful year ahead. Finally, yesterday an announcement was made that the Board of Education of Baltimore County has adopted Diligent Community as its new board management software to replace Board Docs. This new platform is designed to keep the Baltimore County Public Schools community more connected and engaged by offering improved access to important information and streamlined processes, and to explore meeting agendas, minutes, policies, and other documents through a new, easy-to-use public site. The new platform will be live beginning with the September 8th, 2026 board meeting, and the community will still be able to watch the live stream meetings. More information will be on our website in coming weeks. The next item on our agenda is the student member of the board's report. For that, I'll call on Ms. Claire Jabaji.
Thank you. Good evening, Vice Chair Young, Dr. Heiser, and fellow board members. I'm ecstatic to sit in my second board meeting and share with you how I've spent my first month as a student member of the Board of Education. At the beginning of July, I was able to meet with our superintendent one-on-one, and we discussed the goals that I have for my term and how Dr. Heiser will support me through this next year. I also had the privilege of attending 2 of the Meet the Superintendent events. I was able to hear from members of the community and county and listen to their concerns. I was very impressed to see the turnout of these events, as well as the passion that the community members, in addition to BCPS staff, have to make this county right for all. I'm very eager to collaborate with Dr. Heiser throughout this next year. I'm inspired by his ambition, and I have much to learn from his new leadership. In the past few weeks, I have begun my work with BCPS-TV. I was able to film the Back to BCPS video and meet with BCPS-TV to discuss and plan how I can work with them during my term to connect and inform students. I believe working with BCPS-TV is a powerful collaboration that I can establish in order to ensure that students are aware of the work that we do on this board and how it affects them. Additionally, this past Thursday, I spent the day in Annapolis at the Maryland Association of Boards of Education, where I met fellow student board members from all over the state and was able to learn more about local and state boards of education and understand my role as a student member. I plan to stay connected with other SMOBs that I met from the event and my peers to make an impact on a larger scale than just our county. Lastly, and most importantly, I have made sure to stay connected with our students. Over the summer, I've spoken with students from all over the county, answering all questions spanning from my role to advice for their next year of school. I have also spent my past 2 days meeting incoming freshmen at George Washington Carver Center and helping them get adjusted to the school. I would also like to recognize the student that came and spoke today. After attending the Meet the Superintendent events and listening to the concerns at board meetings, I kept hearing concerns regarding screen time and AI usage in the classroom. However, I found that there was a lack of student perspective on these issues, and I asked some students to come in and share their perspective. This is something I would like to continue through my term, not just having my voice represent the students, but having students themselves share their perspective. However, with only 5 spots open for individual citizen and student public comment, I believe it is challenging to get sufficient input from students. Today, there were 3 students prepared to share, and we were only able to hear from 1. I'm ready to work with the Policy Review Committee to revise Policy 8315 to open up more spots for individual citizens and students to make public comments. The student voice is much bigger than me, and I strongly believe we need to give students the opportunity to speak their own voice at these board meetings. I've greatly enjoyed my time on the board, and I look forward to the change we will make together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Jabaji. The next item on the agenda is unfinished business board policies. This is the second reader for these policies, and for that, I call on Ms. Christina Pumphrey, Chair of the Policy Review Committee.
Thank you. Members of the board, the Policy Review Committee asks that the board accept the committee's recommendation to amend the following board policies. Board Policy 0100, Equity, Board Policy 1200, Community Involvement, Board Policy 1210, Relationship with the Parent-Teacher-Student Associations. These policies are presented to you on tonight's agenda as new exhibits J1 and J3.
Thank you, Ms. Pumphrey. Board members, are there any separations requested? May I have a motion to accept the recommendation of the board's Policy Review Committee for Board Policies 0100, 1200, and 1210?
So moved, Ms. Henn.
Thank you, Ms. Henn. No second is needed since recommendation comes from committee. Is there any discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Pumphrey?
Yes.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes.
Mr. McMillian?
Yes.
Ms. Frempong?
Yes.
Ms. Henn?
Yes.
Ms. Jabaji?
Yes.
Ms. Dominowski?
Yes.
Ms. Dulesky?
Yes.
Dr. Savoy? Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is item K, new item added, reconsideration of board action, Puzzle Pieces Learning Academy. Mr. Fitzpatrick, you made a motion to add this to the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I move the board revoke the charter of Puzzle Pieces Learning Academy based on section 16.6 of the charter agreement as recommended by staff at the June 9th Board of Education meeting. Mr. Chair, if seconded, I would immediately move to postpone debate until the August 25th, 2026 meeting so that the board can receive advice from council without disrupting this meeting to go into closed session.
Second, Pumphrey.
Mr. Chair, I move to postpone debate until the August 25th meeting so that we can receive advice from council without disrupting this session.
Need a second?
Second, Pumphrey.
Second.
Any discussion on your motion?
I just don't think we need to clear the whole room and go that for something that we can take a little bit more time for.
Okay. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Pumphrey?
Yes.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes.
Mr. McMillian?
Yes.
Ms. Frempong?
Yes.
Ms. Henn?
Yes.
Sorry, Ms. Jabaji?
Yes.
Ms. Dominowski?
Yes.
Ms. Dulesky?
Yes.
Dr. Savoy?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes. The reconsideration of board action for puzzle pieces will be scheduled for our August 25th board meeting. Yes, Ms. Pumphrey.
Yes.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is action taken in closed session, and for that, I call on Mr. Burns.
Good evening, Vice Chair Young, Superintendent Heiser, members of the board. This evening in closed session, the board considered and took action on 3 appeals, SDA 26-009, SDA 26-010, and HEA 26-028. Now would be an appropriate time for the board to affirm the action it took in closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. May I have a motion to approve the action taken in closed session on hearing examiner cases SDA 26-009, SDA 26-010, and HEA 26-028, and authorize Ms. Gover to sign for those board members not physically present.
So moved, Dulesky.
May I have a second?
Second, Jabaji.
Any discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please, Ms. Gover?
Ms. Pumphrey?
Yes.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes.
Mr. McMillian?
Yes.
Ms. Frempong?
Yes.
Ms. Henn?
Yes.
Ms. Jabaji?
Yes.
Ms. Dominowski?
Yes.
Ms. Dulesky?
Yes.
Dr. Savoy?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is contract awards, and for that, I call on Mr. McMillian, Chair of the Building and Contracts Committee.
Members of the board's Building and Contracts Committee met yesterday, Monday, August 10th, 2026. Items L1 through L12 were forwarded to the full board for approval.
Thank you, Mr. McMillian. Board members, are there any separations? Yes, Ms. Pumphrey.
I'd like to separate item 1, JBO 71521.
Okay. Any additional separations? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve new items M2 through M12? It's
So
M.
moved, Dulesky.
Do I have a motion to approve new items M2 through M12?
So moved, Frempong.
Thank you, Ms. Frempong. No second is needed since recommendation comes from committee. Any discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Pumphrey?
Yes.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes.
Mr. McMillian?
Yes.
Ms. Frempong?
Yes.
Ms. Henn?
Yes.
Ms. Jabaji?
Yes.
Ms. Dominowski?
Yes.
Ms. Dulesky?
Yes.
Dr. Savoy?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve item M1, contract JBO-715-21, Tier 2 or Tier 3 phonics-based interventions?
So moved, Stelasky.
Thank you, Ms. Delusky. No second is needed since the recommendation comes from committee. Are there any discussion? Ms. Pumphrey?
Yes, I just wanted to comment. I voted no for this implementation under the curriculum committee, and I just wanted to state my reasoning for that before we move forward. I have a concern about the implementation of Wilson, and we also have had, as all of you know, stakeholders express their concerns, specifically decoding dyslexia. And my concern is that I do believe this is a great program, but I don't think we're implementing it with fidelity. And I understand that the process that it takes to get teachers certified for a level 1 and level 2 certification takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and we probably don't have the resources for that. But if we don't have the resources to implement it with fidelity, I don't think it's something that we should be using. We should be looking into something else. So that's why I don't support this contract. I believe that these are our most vulnerable students. Our special education students are our most vulnerable students. And we need to make sure that when we're providing them with interventions to learn how to read, that we're doing that with as much fidelity as we do with our Tier 1 instruction, such as HMH. And so that's why I don't want to move forward with this. I understand that's a one-year contract extension. I have a feeling that this will go through tonight, regardless of my vote. But in the future, I will also be pushing to make sure that we have data that shows if we are not requiring the level 1 and level 2 certification, that we are looking to something else, looking to another program as far as a future contract for implementation for Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction. One other thing, I did also request data. And so if we feel as a system, I do trust our experts here. I'm not an expert in this. But if we are being told that using that first introductory level of training is appropriate, then I think that we need data to support that. I'm not saying I don't trust those experts, but I would like to see data to show that. I think that I believe in making data-centered decisions that are in the best interest of our students. So if we were shown data that supported this first level of first level of training, I would be okay with moving forward. But because we were not provided with that data, that's why I am not in support of this contract.
Thank you, Ms. Pumphrey. Ms. Dominowski?
Just to kind of piggyback off Ms. Pumphrey, anecdotally, I've heard from certain parents that when and not that Wilson reading system is not a great system, it is, and taught with fidelity, and it is with the implementation across the board. And with new leadership comes new ways of looking at things, and I want to stay positive, and I know this system does work well when taught correctly and when the trainer is taught correctly. The problem we're running into is that it's not implemented with fidelity across the board. When you hear from parents directly saying that, my child's IEP was was impacted by changing over to Wilson because it wasn't this explicit instruction. It was, I could pull from here and I could pull from here and I can do this and I can do that. When you have a dyslexic student, you need that explicit step-by-step structured learning to learn. And I know Wilson can do that. What my same issue I have is, are we actually making sure that every reading specialist that is using Wilson is using it with fidelity and correctly? So I don't want to end this contract because I know that it is helping our students, but I don't know that it's helping all of our students, and that's my concern.
Dr. Heiser?
Yeah, just to respond, if it would be helpful, we certainly have our CAO, Dr. Monax, is here, and team members with her, perhaps, that can speak to some questions if we'd like to engage in some questions. There were certainly some questions initially that came from board members that we certainly did our due diligence to answer to. I know that we don't want to go through every single question, but we can speak to fidelity, and we can also speak to data collection over time and where we're headed with that. Hope that's helpful. Dr. Monik?
Thank you, Dr. Heiser. Good evening, board members. One of the things that has continued to come up is the data. And just to be fully transparent, we're in the process of migrating data from our old data platform, Performance Matters, into our new data platform, which is EduClimber, which is EduClimber and DNA. EduClimber is an MTSS program, so it will help us monitor interventions over time. Again, even if students leave our system and they come back, we'll still have record of that. With that being said, pulling it some of the ways that were asked by the board right now is not possible because of that migration. With that being said, we did pull some raw data, so I just want to be very transparent with the raw data. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Kraft in a moment, but I do want to commend her because she spent several hours today hand calculating this data so that we can bring it forward to you, because I know that this has been a question that's come forward. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Kraft, and she's going to share some of those things with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Molyneux. So I'm going to break it into both elementary and secondary implementation. So in our secondary schools, 77% of our students receiving Wilson made significant gains. 23% showed expected growth. So none of our students made no growth or went backwards. In elementary, we have 86% of our students that showed or demonstrated growth, and the other 14% did not they either maintained their level or did not show much growth. And within that subset, we actually had already identified a couple of issues. One of the students in that data set only received 130 minutes of instruction, and the best we can figure is that they were put into a different intervention. There was another student that was a multilingual learner, and we've been working very closely with the Office of Multilingual Achievement to ensure that our students are placed in the right intervention at the right time. And we talk a lot about the importance of understanding language development and literacy development, and when is the right time to provide intervention for a student that is a multilingual learner. And so right now, that is the data that we have, and I'm really excited. As Dr. Molyneux talked about the EduClimber and the data system, we also made some strategic decisions about increasing the CBMs that we are using in grades 4 and 5 to extend from K to 3. As well as having data meetings like we have at the secondary 3 times a year with the principal, where we look at beginning of the year growth, middle of the year growth, and end of the year growth. And those meetings, we started this year in elementary with a handful of schools, and we will continue to do those because we do think the data is so important. And so we do look at it at the district level, but then we also sit down with the schools and partner with them to say, okay, so here's where we are from beginning to the middle of the year. What are our next steps, and how can we partner with you to support this going forward?
Thank you, Dr. Kraft. Thank you, Dr. Molyneux. Ms. Hinn.
Thank you, Vice Chair Young, and thank you for your time in pulling that data and also in responding to the myriad of questions that I submitted. I know that significant time was spent on that, and thank you, Dr. Heiser, as well, for facilitating those. Board Member Pumphrey articulated my concerns far better than I could, but I too have heard from stakeholders, namely Decoding Dyslexia, about their concerns with the implementation. And as Board Member Pumphrey said, I don't question the value of Wilson itself and the product, but rather the implementation. And my main concern, reviewing the information that you provided, is an equity issue. You shared that 30 teachers have been trained in Wilson, and I know there's some question as to whether or not the training that we provide is adequate in terms of implementing this with fidelity. However, assuming that it is, my question is, are we serving all students who need this intervention, given the fact that we only have 30 teachers trained, and where are they? And are we identifying all students in need of this intervention? And if we are, again, I'm assuming best case scenario, how are we serving them with only 30 teachers system-wide? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. So I want to
peel it apart. So the first part about how we are training our teachers that are implementing Wilson. We have a district, within Wilson, we have somebody that works specifically with our district. And so we meet with them periodically. Our last meeting was on July 24th, and we discussed this upcoming year. And we talked about implementation. We talked about any recommendations they had from any coaching visits the previous year, things that we could improve. And we also discussed that we have some new teachers that are wanting to get trained. And so what the representative told us is you can do the 3-day training, or the other option is you can do the over 2 years where they get that, certification. And so, when we were looking at, both of those options, and I agree with you that we do want to continue to look for teachers that want to invest in that level of training. I think it's important. But right now, we have not been able to find anyone that could make that commitment to that. That Wilson did say that was an implementation model that they could support. So that was on July 24th. The second part of your question really is, so when a student meets the criteria for a Tier 3 decoding intervention, we actually have 2 different programs that we use in our district. One is Wilson, that we're talking about tonight, and the other is Orton Gillingham. And so there's a variety of factors that go into it, and both programs are effective. Both of them use a structured literacy approach. We wouldn't still have both of them if they weren't showing data gains. And so based on when teachers have been trained, where they are, different factors, they decide the intervention that they will use within their school. So we do have a very heavy presence of OG trained teachers, but we also want to honor the people that have done Wilson and that are making really good gains with our students. It's exciting to be able to sit up here and say 100% of our secondary students grew this year in Wilson. And so it's a both and. So we can train anybody that has the interest. The first step is, of course, once we have the screening, we then look at students that are, that are flagging for us. So they are not at grade level. From there, we do a diagnostic, and the diagnostic really tells us whether is this a decoding issue or is this a language comprehension issue. And so if it's a decoding issue, then we're looking at what tier of service they need. And so we might look at where they were previously, recommendations made, the growth that they made in that tier, the intensity in which it was given before, we say, okay, Tier 3 is the right place. And in fact, when we do our placement recommendations year to year, we don't actually call out a program. We either say it's a Tier 2 decoding, a Tier 3 decoding, a Tier 2 comprehension, or a Tier 3 comprehension, because it's not necessarily about the program. Of course, we're going to use evidence-based program and collect data, but what it's about is what is the service level that they need and what is the specific skill. And so we will continue to offer training. Like I said, we do have a few, we're waiting on this contract. We actually have several teachers that have expressed interest in being trained, and we would like to support that. And so we will continue to offer that for teachers that want to be trained. So there are, like I said, multiple factors that go into a school deciding whether they're going to offer Tier 3 decoding OG or Tier 3 decoding Wilson.
I just want to piggyback on that, Dr. Kraft, thank you. What she just shared was that there are teachers that are interested. However, if we have students that are in schools that need Wilson, that's why we need this contract, is so that we can pull them to train them, because they cannot provide Wilson instruction if they do not go through the 3 days of training. So it's open to any teacher that we have and need, and again, students will drive those decisions.
Vice Chair Young, may I ask a follow-up?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So I understand the current data limitations. I believe this contract was originally approved in 2021. The board members have been asking for data on outcomes, and it's helpful to hear that we have other interventions that are available for these students. What I'm struggling with is understanding how we're meeting the needs of all students, given our current MCAP scores, for instance, and proficiencies, given the resources that we have. And again, my concern is implementation, not the system itself, and whether or not we're providing for all students, because that's our goal, right? We want to see the success rate, particularly for Wilson, given this contract. What are the exit rates? What are the proficiency gains, not just in growth, but proficiency? And that's what I've been asking for. And I know that there are limitations currently with the migration of data, and that all makes sense. So thank you for providing that explanation. But when Board Member Pumphrey and Board Member Dominowski and I ask about data, we're looking to see, that justification in this investment in this system, and how does it compare to our other investments in tools moving forward. So I will support the continuance of this for our learners' sake and moving that forward. But as we evaluate these tools, we need to look at those outcomes, and we've been asking for this data. So it's really important that in our governance role that we have the data that we need to be able to justify this continued investment and ensure that our learners are getting the resources that we need, and all learners, because I'm hearing these pockets, are being served, and that's great, but we need to make sure that we're serving all students, and that the outcomes that we need to see are being met. Thank you.
Did you have just a brief comment? Thank you for your for all the questions, and thank you for supporting the continuance of this for this year. And I appreciate that. Dr. Kraft, thank you. Dr. Molinax, thank you for your expertise. And we absolutely are committed. When we think about the big investment that we want to reconsider for next year, without a doubt, the team is thinking about return on investment.
Yes.
Those weren't just words or lip service when we were, going through the interview process and talking about these kinds of contracts. And so I appreciate the work that was done really over the last 48 hours around this and data collection, but there's more to come on that in terms of how we dig into this and we look at when it's up for renewal in a year. And I'm excited about what it may or may not show, and equity is a big piece of that. How can we meet the needs of all students? So thank you.
Ms. Delusky?
Thank you. And thank you to all the board members for your comments, and then to staff for some clarification. Yes, I certainly support the continuity of this program. I have a comment and a question. My comment would be, going forward for the next budget season, it would be wonderful if we can ensure that we have some kind of allocation to support the funding for any teacher that is interested in the training, and even more importantly, perhaps, so that all of the teachers can get the training. And then my question would be, if for some reason this does not pass, what would be the effects and the backup plan to put in place? And thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Delusky. I think the effects, as Dr. Kraft just shared, we have lots of students who have made progress and are demonstrating growth, and specifically at our secondary level, which is where we know we have some gaps. Mm-hmm. And we've had historically gaps in interventions we provide at the secondary level. So what my concern would be is that these students who are showing growth would not continue in a program that they're meeting with success if this is not passed.
And to add on to that, thank you, Dr. Molinax. We would have to take them out of Wilson and put them in a different program, which we do have, but what we then need to do is train those teachers who have been Wilson in a different program. So there would be a gap at the beginning of the year when students couldn't receive service because they didn't have a trained educator in front of them. So it's a both and. It's a group of students that are making progress, moving to a different intervention, but also the gap of time to get teachers trained in an alternative Tier 3 decoding program.
The other thing I think is very important to know is that we're waiting for MSD to finish their adolescent literacy policy, and with that, they will be providing, obviously, a list of high-quality HQIM and additional interventions. So this, in my opinion, is probably the most fiscally responsible decision, because if we go out and try to find something else right now, we don't know if that will actually show up on the list that MSDE obviously provides.
Ms. Frimpong?
Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Kraft, for all that work that you did. I appreciate. So going off of what Mr. Lusky was saying, because that was my question as far as what happens if we don't have Wilson, and I heard your response. So, but then my question would be, we don't just have then OG that they could go back to, because I thought when you were talking about we don't provide a program, we just say this is the intervention.
Yes, so that's exactly what I was saying, is we would move them to OG, but we don't so when I said, going back to Ms. Hen's question about, well, how, why are these 30, schools are, using Wilson, these teachers trained? So they made that decision most likely because they had a teacher trained in Wilson and maybe not in OG. Not all the time, but that could be a factor. So what I'm saying is there's not a high likelihood that that Wilson teacher is also trained in OG. And so that is the gap that would, and again, the bottom line is every student will receive intervention. It's just going to create a gap in the beginning of the year because obviously, we're at the point where it's August 11th. And so we're just, 2 weeks out from school starting. And so we've got to, then find those teachers and get them the training that they need to implement the program. Because as we've heard tonight multiple times, we shouldn't be teaching a program without fidelity of the program. And so that's really the main gap. And really, like Dr. Molinek said, the 1-year extension was so that we could continue to collect the data. As most of you know, because I think we talked about it, it moved over to the Office of ELA this year. And so we've had it for this past year, and we have really put, some processes in place to start to look at it like we, have looked at our Tier 2 programs in the past. To make sure that it is a return on investment, and quite honestly, our goal is to make sure every student reads, right? And I've seen that, and I've seen the power of even when I was at the high school level, a student that came in almost a non-reader below a 3rd grade level that was able to then meet grade level proficiency and graduate and go on to post-secondary options. And so we know at the end of the day, there are several evidence-based programs that work. What we're trying to minimize as MSD is finalizing recommendations, and we have this program and it's showing growth, is that we have this year to make a decision. We also knew a new superintendent was coming in. So a lot of factors went into that when we made the decision to say, let's extend a year, because we actually have an RFI coming up, but it's not fiscally responsible if it's not on the MSD list. We wanted Dr. Heiser to be able to weigh in. We really wanted to make sure that we were working, in the best way possible and not switching gears after making a decision.
Makes sense, and thank you for that thoughtfulness. It sounds like there's a lot of different factors to consider. As far as the data, it was interesting hearing you talk about what you found based on your calculations. And so how are teachers, or how is the system using that data so that they know when there's a need to pivot? For example, we're not making the growth that was expected. So how do we use that data to know when to pivot, and then how often, what is the frequency that's occurring that they're using the data?
So thank you for that question, because I love to talk about literacy. I like to say, and this is always exciting for me to say, is we were ahead of the MSD guidelines on progress monitoring. So we already had something in place. And so we actually did a presentation on our MTSS model at one of the MSD literacy briefings. So I do think that progress monitoring is something that we do well. And so what MSD says that you have to progress no less than once a month. We actually recommend for our Tier 2 that they're progress monitoring every 2 weeks, and in our most intense Tier 3 that we're gathering some kind of data weekly. And so we are looking, sometimes there is a program recommendation that is specific to progress monitoring, but then we also have CBMs that help us look at over time a student's growth trajectory. So when we notice that a student isn't growing, then we look and see a couple of things. Was the program being delivered with fidelity? Was the student attending the intervention? Sometimes what time of the day was the intervention? We look at some factors and we adjust. And so once we adjust, If then, that next 4-week mark comes by and we're still not seeing progress, then we look and say, do we need to intensify the program? What are the things that we need to do? And so part of that is on the school that they're doing that. Part of it is us at the district level looking and flagging when we see lack of growth. And certainly those 3 times a year data meetings where we sit down and look at data right down to the student level, that gives, principals, APs, and at the secondary level DCs, and at the elementary level reading specialists an opportunity to really talk about the data. And they should be able to tell part of that data story to us, because when we're looking at numbers, we don't necessarily know the whole picture. And so we really look and say, is this not a good match? And then what do we need to do to make sure that students can make adequate progress? And that is a really big deal, that we don't wait an entire year and say, oh, you know what, that didn't work, let's try something different, that we make those mid-year corrections. And I have to say, we do a great job in secondary of this, because in secondary, schedules are not as fluid as in elementary. And so you're put into a period, there's scheduling changes, but we have established such a great system that when a student needs to either exit out or needs to go to a more intense or less intense, that we have created these pathways to make sure that that can happen, that we're not holding students up because of a barrier such as scheduling.
Ms. Hen, you've spoken. Ms. Pumphrey, you've spoken. Is there anyone else who has a question? Mr. Fitzpatrick.
I'm pretty simple, guys. Just brass tacks. Are we helping the most people that we can for the best cost by approving this or not?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. That's our job, is to make sure that we are meeting the needs of students. And adjusting as needed. So we also have structures, to go back to the data analysis. There's structures, obviously our Department of School partners go out, they listen to the data meetings, they perform in them, they ask the questions, they work collaboratively with the offices in curriculum instruction to know what the good questions are, what should they be asking. So it's a great partnership to make sure that those meetings, Ms. Frimpong, are happening regularly, even if C&I is not participating in them. So that they've been trained. And I think Dr. Kraft doesn't do good enough job at taking some credit for the fact that the ELA office does an outstanding job of coaching not only principals and department chairs and reading specialists, but also teachers.
Dr. Savoy?
Yes, good evening. How much will the program cost per student?
We'll have to get that back to you. We don't have the actual student.
Yeah, I broke it out based on what we were spending this year. And so I don't want to misquote the amount, but I can absolutely get that to Dr. Heiser, and so he can get that out to you.
How many students are going to be involved in it, in the program?
That varies based on the data. So that varies depending on what the students are showing. We can talk about how many students were last year, potentially. Again, these are hand calculations. You can see her pink pen all over her paper.
So right now, it looks like we have about 90 students scheduled, but elementary students haven't been finalized in terms of scheduling. Some of those decisions will be made after that September reading screener data. So I'm going to just say around 100, just to be safe, around 100 students that would be impacted.
Typically 5% to 10% of our students receive a Tier 3 intervention. So that's kind of the top of the pyramid.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Pumphrey.
First, thank you, Dr. Kraft, for the time you put in to provide that data. I greatly appreciate it. And please know that my concerns have nothing to do with your expertise. I trust that fully. But I do need to I feel that I need to make sure I'm making my choices in the best interest of our students.
Yeah.
So just a couple follow-up questions based on what you mentioned. The 30 teachers that are trained, that's the introductory course, not the level 1 or level 2 certification, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And when you talked about the 77% significant growth for secondary schools, 86% growth for the elementary schools, is that two different terminologies? And if so, what does that mean?
We were using two different methods, so we were really sticking to the language of whatever measure was being used. So they are different measures. Now, what I will tell you going forward is that we will be consistent in our use of CBMs, which will show a nice progress monitoring over time. And of course, as you know, we're giving STAR to all of our students. And so when we start to look at that data, The problem with just relying on STAR data is when you are looking at a student in need of a decoding comprehension, you can't see the nuances in growth because it's really testing, are they at grade level, right? And so that is why we combine both data points over time, is to look at, when we look at the specific things that a tier 3 decoding intervention is teaching, that we look at things like oral reading fluency, nonsense words, and we're looking to see, is that growing over time? And so those just were two different measures, and I just wanted to be, I didn't want to use the same language just because it would have sounded better, but they're different measures, and they categorize them differently the way they norm them.
Okay, and when we talked about EduClimber, when do we expect to be able to start receiving that data? And do you think that will be in time for us to analyze when the next contract cycle comes up?
100%, I'll be ready for the next contract. That is a definite. To give you an actual date as to when it's ready, I can't say that, but I do know that we should be by the end of September pretty close to it all being up there, because we are piloting in some schools using EduClimber to write the scripts that are going to be required by the literacy policy. So we'll start having that data. Again, it's just migrating it over to a platform that we no longer use and getting it out of there and putting it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Henn.
Thank you. So Dr. Kraft, going back to a secondary student, could you walk us through what an average day might look like, say for a middle school student who's been identified and placed to receive Wilson intervention? What does that look like? Walk us through, they've been identified, take us through the scheduling, what their day might look like, when they receive services, and what does that look like at the schoolhouse level?
So a student will still continue to receive English language arts, and so the reading intervention is in addition to their English language arts. That will replace one of their electives in their schedule. When the master scheduler goes to schedule students, that's where that placement recommendation comes in. And so once we've identified what a student needs, then what will happen is they will look at the students and how to schedule them so that they are able to receive that intervention. And so a lot of times that one of those, the reading classes are prioritized when they go to build the master schedule to make sure that they can have what they need. The other thing, I know you said a typical student, but just as an aside, that's where we're trying to do the side-by-side. So when we look at a master scheduler, you might have a tier 2 decoding and a tier 3 decoding within the same period block, so that if you need to either intensify or reduce the intensity, it's a lateral switch. And so there have been several, and we've worked really hard. And I do want to say, as I'm talking, I was just thinking about even just this data. You know, we worked with DOIT today, who then were able to pull out the back end data. We also partner with our master scheduler. So there's a lot of pieces that, and of course, our DOS ADs, the Division of Schools, are really and making sure all the scheduling happens. And so it really is a team effort as we look to see what a student needs. A piece that we put in place last year, which is exciting, we were having so many kids exiting at the middle school level. They're like, what do we do with them mid-year? Do we put them in halfway through our world languages? That we were actually asked to create a literacy elective. So for a student that has met benchmark at mid-year, that there is a place for them to go. And so those are all the things that kind of go into those logistical things. So they will have all their other, core content courses, math, social studies, science. They will get to choose an elective, but then one of the electives will become that reading.
So at some point they are reassessed, and hopefully they've met that benchmark, and their schedule is then updated. So I'm trying to bring us back down to the 200-foot level here and see what this might look like for a student, so that we could see the impact this is having on that particular student, which is why I'm trying to bring us back down to understand their daily schedule, what services they're receiving, who's providing it, and how that's being monitored and by whom.
Right. So they're monitored during, obviously we've talked about PLCs before and data meetings. So they're monitored through that. They go back through and they look at it in the progress monitoring timeline that has been established. So going back to the 200-foot view, if I'm sitting in a Wilson classroom for period 2 and I'm showing progress and I need to step down, there there is definitely a class that is at the same period too, that might be a step down to a tier 2 intervention. It also could be another class that is the literacy course that they can go over to. So they just switch classes, I guess you would say, during that same period. So that's why the master schedule is so imperative. And obviously we have a wonderful schedule that helps work that out. So I think that answers your question.
And I'll pick up I think you asked about who delivers it.
yeah.
And so what's really beautiful about how we approach literacy is that we work in partnership with the Department of Special Education as well as the Office of Multilingual Achievement. And so the person that is teaching the class could be a variety, a variety of different positions. Every secondary school does have a reading position, but then we also have special educators. We also have multilingual learner teachers, ELD teachers. And so a teacher, it could be fluid in terms of who is teaching it. It's somebody that's been trained, but also knowing that we have a lot of different people that could be providing the services depending on the profile of the student.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kraft. Thank you, Dr. Mullinex, for answering a very robust set of questions. We're now going to move on and have a roll call vote on approving contract M1. Ms. Gopher.
Ms. Pumphrey?
No.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes.
Mr. McMillian?
I'm sorry, no.
Ms. Frempong?
Yes.
Ms. Hen?
Yes.
Ms. Jabaji?
Yes.
Ms. Dominowski?
Yes.
Ms. Stileski?
Yes.
Dr. Savoy?
No.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is new business, FY 2027 organizational chart. And for that, I call on Dr. Heiser.
Thank you, Vice Chair Young, members of the board. I have presented the organizational chart for FY27. This was also presented in the spring by the previous superintendent. That organizational structure has not changed, so it's the same organizational structure. So just submitting that for approval. And if that does change in the future, that would be brought back here, obviously, for approval as well. Thank you.
Any discussion? Ms. Frimpong.
So this org chart is based on last year, and I understand it was before you. I guess, but one thing I'd like to ask or to bring forward is a motion about our equity department. So previously, that equity department that we had, it was a separate department. It has since been moved under a different department. And so I'd like to look at bringing that to be a separate department again. I understand funding issues. We still only have the people that we have. We can look at that at the next budget season, but still bringing that office back out and restoring the department as well as the titles, because I think currently they're considered climate and cultural specialists versus our equity department and our equity specialists.
Thank you for that recommendation. I'll certainly take that into consideration over the next, I know this is, I'm sure, an urgent matter in terms of you wouldn't have brought it up if it weren't, but if you'd like to allow me a couple of months as I evaluate and assess the entire system. What I'd hate to do is piecemeal an organizational structure and keep bringing things back to you. I'd rather do it as whole as I can, even if it's mid-year. So thank you so much.
Okay. May I have a motion to accept the FY 2027? Go ahead, Ms. Hen.
Thank you, Vice Chair Young. Just a comment. As we think about the FY 28 organizational chart, if you'll allow me to digress a bit, I just would like us to consider 2 additional chief positions. One, a chief financial officer, and the second, a chief information officer. I know that I'm well aware of the fiscal constraints of both of those positions. However, as we discuss finances within the newly formed budget committee, and as we think about the organizational structure, and as you become acclimated, Dr. Heiser, these are 2 strategically important positions that I think are worthy of consideration.
Thank you for that recommendation.
Ms. Thornton.
Vice Chair Young, can I ask Ms. Hannah a question in reference to the Chief Information Officer? And that, based on that recommendation, what would that particular position be in charge of, or what would their role be?
Proceed.
Board Member Thornton, thank you for the question. I'd be happy to provide you with a description that I've provided to Dr. Heiser, if you'd like to take a look at it. I believe this is off topic for tonight's discussion for the FY27 organization chart, but I'm happy to provide that.
Could you just give a brief summary?
Chief Information Officer would be overseeing the IT from a strategic level of information usage and governance throughout BCPS.
Okay.
So both positions are detailed in the Public Works report as well, if you'd like to take a look at their recommendations.
I will. And if you could share that information with me, it would be greatly appreciated.
Got it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. May I have a motion to accept the FY 2027 organizational chart as presented in Exhibit N1?
So moved, Celeste.
May I have a second?
Second, Dominowski.
Any more discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Pumphrey?
Yes.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes.
Mr. McMillian?
Yes.
Ms. Frempong?
Yes.
Ms. Henn?
Yes.
Ms. Jabaji?
Yes.
Ms. Dominowski?
Yes.
Ms. Stoleski?
Yes.
Dr. Savoy?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is new business, special projects, and for these, I call on Dr. Jones.
Good evening, Vice Chair Young, Superintendent Heiser, and members of the board. I am pleased to bring before you special projects for Hereford Middle School. The 733 special project is for a batting cage and pitcher's mound and will be located on the left side of the soccer lacrosse fields. The batting cage will be approximately 70 feet by 15 feet with an additional pitcher's mound on one end. The funding, which is $17,000, is being provided by the Hereford Zone Recreation and Parks Council, and they will be volunteering to perform the installation of the batting cage. The timeline is within 1 month. At this time, we'd like to ask that you consider the approval of the 7330 for the Hereford Middle School special project.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Any questions?
Nope.
All right. May I have a motion to accept the special project request, a batting cage for Hereford Middle School as presented in Exhibit 01?
So moved, Jabaji.
May I have a second?
Second, Fitzpatrick.
Any discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Pumphrey?
Yes.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes.
Mr. McMillian?
Yes.
Ms. Frempong?
Yes.
Ms. Henn?
Yes.
Ms. Jabaji?
Yes.
Ms. Dominowski?
Yes.
Ms. Stoleski?
Yes.
Dr. Savoy?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Jones?
Thank you. Again, I'd like to bring before you a 7330 special project, this time Chesapeake High School outdoor seating area. This 7330 special project is for an outdoor lunch seating and reading area on the east side of Chesapeake High School and installed under an area of trees for shading. Labor materials and equipment were generously donated from the Home Depot Golden Ring. Classic Lawn and Landscape has agreed to install the paving materials supplied by Home Depot at no cost. This is a $21,000 donation, and the timeline is approximately 2 months. At this time, I'd ask that the board consider the 7330 project, special project for Chesapeake High School.
Any discussion? No. Mr. McMillian?
Dr. Jones, I'm very aware of that space, having taught there for 25 years. Those trees have a real dense foliage to them. I think this is an excellent idea to provide a shaded area for kids to go out at lunchtime and maybe even during class periods. So I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It'll be a nice project for them. Yes.
May I have a motion to accept the special project request, an outdoor seating area for Chesapeake High School as presented in Exhibit 02?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second, Jabaji.
Any further discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Pumphrey?
Yes.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes.
Mr. McMillian?
Yes.
Ms. Frempong?
Yes.
Ms. Henn?
Yes.
Ms. Jabaji?
Yes.
Ms. Dominowski?
Yes.
Ms. Delusky?
Yes.
Dr. Savoy?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. The next item on the agenda is the report on the proposed FY 2028 state capital budget request. And for that, I call on Mr. Taylor.
Good evening. Good evening, Vice Chair Young, Superintendent Dr. Heiser, members of the board. My name is Paul Taylor. I'm the Director of Facilities Construction and Improvement, as well as Strategic Planning. I'm joined here by Dean Simek, who is the Manager of Design. I'm here this evening to present the FY 2028 State Capital Budget Request. Please note that this state capital budget request looks different than submissions in the past. We have added a column that shows the estimated total project costs for each project. At the top of this priority list are 3 major projects, 2 of which were included in the FY27 request but did not receive funding. Delaney High School replacement project request includes the remainder of eligible state funding to continue construction. Patapsco High School addition funding request will enable construction to commence in FY28. And the Northwest Area CTE Center request will allow for design of the facility to take place. This request also includes systemic needs, including chiller, fire alarms, boilers, roof replacement, and electrical upgrades that represent immediate capital needs. 2 of these systemic projects were in the FY27 state request, but were not funded. Major and systemic projects that did not receive funding last year due to limited state funding are included in this request. In the middle column for FY 2027, BCF received close to $42 million in state capital funding. On the left-hand side, state target allocations for FY28 is approximately $41 million. However, the IAC is sometimes able to secure additional funding, and BCPS needs to be prepared for this possibility. Further, some projects may be funded through grants or other sources. Thus, on the right-hand column, this FY28 state funding priority list includes projects totaling almost $48 million. This slide provides a schedule for the FY28 state capital budget request. After tonight's introduction, there will be a board work session on August 25th, followed by your vote on September 8th. That concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for the report, Mr. Taylor. Board members, please submit any questions you may have on the proposed FY 2028 state capital budget request to Dr. Heiser by Tuesday, August 18, 2026 for discussion at the August 25th, 2026 board work session. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is an update on library media specialist, and for that, I call on Dr. Heiser.
Thank you, Vice Chair Young, members of the board. I'd like to begin. This is a new item for me, not a new item for the board, and so I recognize that. This has been discussed well before my arrival, and was certainly an item within in great discussion in budget season and beyond that. Before I begin, I would also like to just preempt this by saying thank you to Mr. Million. This came up, and we were able to at least allow me a little bit of time to look at this issue. And members of the board, thank you for allowing me that time and working with our team as I got up to speed over the last 5 weeks or so. Looking at this, you know full well the staffing standards and expectation for the coming year. Principals are told to schedule secondary library media specialists as teachers of record for 2 classes in alignment with their area of certification or in a course for which no specific certification is required. Additionally, the effective learning habits and independent research seminar courses, they can be leveraged by the library media specialist expertise for inquiry, research, and literacy while supporting student access across content areas. And the third stipulation is that library media specialists may not be scheduled during lunch periods to ensure that the media center is open and fully operational for students and staff to use during that time. So with that said, I wanted to just provide some data here for you, very little data, but just data nonetheless. There's a few more media specialists, library media specialists, other than what you're seeing there. However, with that said, for round numbers, there are 26 LMSs at the middle school level and 24 LMSs at the high school levels. Those don't include what I would consider is special school situations. So it's not that they're not important, it's just that I wanted to emphasize what's happening at the middle school and traditional middle school and traditional high school levels. Those LMSs, upon working with our team, are teaching a variety of different core courses, certainly many in English, but across core subject areas, if that was their area of certification, with the 2 sections total. So all within certification. There was one instance, an LMS teaching outside of certification because they're certified in elementary ed, but teaching English 9. There were 1 or 2 schools, again, this was information I received last week, 2, I believe, that weren't currently assigned sections to teach. Those are kind of one-offs that we'll look into and we'll address as appropriate to make sure that they are teaching. So with that said, I thought it was really important for me just to share the implications and considerations as you think about what we're doing for this school year and what how that would impact our school system. So, and there are probably library media specialists out there listening to this, and they're wondering, what I'm going to say. I don't want you to perceive this as necessarily I think it's a great thing that library media specialists are teaching. I mean, I haven't necessarily taken a position on that. I'm just, my goal right now is to make sure that we are well positioned and this board is well positioned, our school system's well positioned, that we start the school year in a really, really solid way. So some implications that master schedules are roughly 95% complete at this standpoint. In fact, last week it was 93%, so shout out to all those schedulers out there that are doing the hard work. Students and families have had access to their schedules now, so they have access to those schedules. Just talking to our student board member about her schedule. Adjusting schedules at this late date would be extremely problematic. You should know that in terms of how it would impact the operations of a school system if you were to make a change. Another implication is that we have some other specialty positions, ADs as an example, who would also wonder why they're still teaching and what are we doing with those positions. There's something to think about if you were to change course here. What about their teaching responsibilities? Cost was certainly an item that I watched previous board reports and information on this, so I thought it was important just to provide you that information in terms of the cost. And this is a minimal cost. There's certainly other things to consider, but minimally, it's about $1.25 million. And I want to break this down for you. So a question would be that where would we find that money is a big consideration. Would you have to cut from another area in order to fulfill this? And the way I got to the 1.25 million is that using a round number of 50 LMSs, again, they're teaching 2 sections, so that's 2 out of 8, so that's 0.25 sections, and that equals 12.5 FTEs. And if you take those 12.5 FTEs, you times it by $100,000, that's including benefits, you get to the $1.25 million. if you can move beyond the financials of that situation, operationally, a big question would be who would teach the sections at each school. We cannot dissolve those sections unless you want to dissolve those sections at a particular school. If you're teaching a course in English 9, let's say, those students would be dissolved into other sections, assuming it fit their schedule. You'd probably have to adjust the master schedule, but if it didn't, those class sizes would increase for those teachers. That certainly is something to consider, and not something that obviously I want to see in terms of class sizes. I think it's almost impossible at this point to go out and identify 12.5, 12 and a half teachers that are out there at this late date. You saw I think our HR team does an amazing job, but that would be an almost impossible act to find 12.5. And thinking about those 12.5, that's split among 50 locations. So when you think about that, you would have to divide up a teacher that would go to multiple schools, which is also almost impossible to do, to find someone that way. It's also really difficult to find, whether it's now or any time for that matter, part-time teachers that are willing to come in and available to teach, that have the certification, that teach part-time for just 2 classes, maybe come in for 1 period a day, 1A and 1B, to teach a Science 9 or to teach another course. So that's another big challenge as you think about if you do want to fund this and do you want to make a shift, how would we implement it? So that's very difficult. One of the things that concerns me most is that we would be trying to implement something that is, and I don't know if this is a word, that's unimplementable. I don't think that is a word, but that's in a practical sense. And one of the most difficult things would be if we start school without teachers in classrooms, or we start class where students don't have a teacher in a room. And that, having been in many, many years ago, in a situation where you've probably seen it before, where the worst way for a school to start is when you don't have enough teachers or you don't have kids with schedules. And it's just disruption, and that's not something we want to see. So with that, I'll turn it back. I'm sure there's a lot of discussion, maybe some more questions that I'd be try to answer. Thank you for allowing me to look into this and at least provide you a little bit of information at this time as you consider this situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Heiser. Any questions from board members? Ms. Pumphrey.
I'm not sure that Dr. Heiser can answer this, but there's a difference in the original amount that we were told for the funding of this. It's stated 1.5 million, which I understand Dr. Heiser's math, but we were previously told by staff a different amount. I think it was more like 3.5 million. Not to quote exactly, but it definitely was a different number, and in my opinion, maybe double that. So I'm just wondering why we were presented with that initial number, and that's changed.
And I'll speak. I mean, I can't speak to the previous report. I do know in just reviewing it, I believe it was 32 or 33 FTEs, if I recall, and the dollar amount. I mean, one of the things not in my calculation is that if you were to have part-time teachers, that you would have to pay them in terms of mileage, in terms of going to, I'm sure that they calculated that in. Perhaps they took it, I took a direct FTE route with 12.5. Again, speculation, they may have speculated to say, that's really impossible to do. Let's triple that and replace those teachers with what they need. I can't speak to it, but this was the straight math that I came up with. Again, very difficult to implement, though. Thanks.
Thank you.
Ms. Dominowski.
Yes, again, this might not be something you can answer directly, but moving forward past this year, is this going to be the common practice? We're going to continue?
Listen, I think that and I said it respectfully, Liz, I think it's important that we've talked about the budget process, and we've talked about priorities and what our priorities are, what board priorities are, what the superintendent's priorities are, and find alignment on those priorities. And so I think that certainly this will likely rise to be a priority. I don't want to say that too prematurely. I can't speak for the board. But, certainly staffing in our schools is a priority, right? And so they're pretty bare boned, and I think we have to recognize what's happened at our schools, and this being a piece of that, right? So certainly likely would line up as a pretty key priority for next year.
Ms. Delusky.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. Just a comment. In terms of in February when we were voting on the budget and the motion was made to ensure that the library media specialist would not have the requirement to teach 2 periods. The question was asked about how it would be funded. And I'm paraphrasing, but the response was that, that basically in that budget, which of course you were not a part of, Dr. Heiser, that, the money would have to be shifted around in order to find a way. This is a really, really tough predicament to decide what is best. Everything that Dr. Heiser that you said is completely valid, and the strains in terms of scheduling and ensuring teachers is a very real issue. We have heard from many library media specialists, and I want to thank all of them for all of their communications, in person and through email, really outlining specific ways that the students were served when they were full-time versus the negative impacts when they were pulled and stretched thin. And of course, it goes beyond that 2 period of teaching. It's the planning and the grading and contacting parents and data collection and so forth. So this is just a really, really unfortunate situation. It almost feels as though the board's intent in terms of when that motion passed has just lost its credibility, and I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Delusky. Mr. McMillian?
Dr. Heiser, is there a possibility that some of these excess teachers that Mr. McCall talked about earlier could be given, the ones that have been positions in these schools without permanent positions, is there a possibility that the principals could be told to assign them some of these responsibilities that the library and media specialists have?
I don't want to speak out of turn. I'll look to the expert over there, Mr. McCall. My understanding is, though, those excess teachers, we've matched them by certification and level already. And so if there were a match to be made, we would make the match. Is that accurate, Mr. McCall? If you'd like to come to the table, please. Thank you.
That is correct, Dr. Heiser. Based upon the matches that we make those matches based upon those various educator license areas. And if that were the case, then we would try to make the matches as best we could. But as I say, in a principal's situation that they could use them, like I said before, earlier in the session, that they've been identified to help with credit recovery, with co-teaching, and also with credit recovery, co-teaching, also pullouts.
Yeah. Let's say that one of these individuals is certified in English, secondary English, and the library media science specialist was assigned, to teach English. Is there a possibility that the principal could then have this excess person pick up those classes?
I can't speak to the specific situation on that,
Okay.
but it could very well be. But I can't speak to the specifics on. I
I'm
don't
sorry.
know the folks currently as it is what their certification areas are, but based upon what we have, most are in areas that are already really a plethora of folks who are in a content area that we have a hard time placing. So I don't know that would help in terms of their scheduling.
And I would like to say something about the presentation that we received earlier, not today. but the one we received several months ago. And I understand that you had nothing to do with that. You're not responsible for that. You didn't construct that. I had a number of issues with that presentation. And for example, one of them is comparing circulation out of an elementary school library compared to a high school library. To me, it's not insulting to somebody that's worked with those people, but that's apples and oranges in my mind, coming from a 35-year career educator. Even I was not a library and media specialist, and I don't claim to be that. But those are different jobs, and to compare those, and that presentation did that. And it had a number of different things, and the monetary piece was one, and something else. It might have influenced some people sitting around this dais to vote against that because of that presentation. So just please keep that in mind. That presentation before, Dr. Heiser didn't have anything to do with. He presented his information today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McMillian. Ms. Frimpong.
Thank you. I just have a question from slide 3, where that last bullet where it says only one LMS is teaching outside of the certification area because they're certified in elementary ed, but teaching English 9. So my question is there an impact or is there any concern about that because that teacher is not certified in elementary ed? I know we have career changers who may come in and they're conditional teachers and they're teaching. So it sounds like we're covered, but I just want to understand a little bit more about what that means, the impact of that.
Thank you for the question. I'd like to circle back with you and the board on that question, just to make sure we're in good spot. And I don't want to put Mr. McCall on the spot because he's not in on this piece of it, and that wouldn't be fair to him. So if we could do some more work on that and just find out about that one to make sure, but I'm sure what we don't want to do is make sure that we are out of compliance in any way, and we'll be certain of that. Thank you.
Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, Dr. Heiser, so a lot to unpack here. You weren't here, I wasn't here when this happened, but it seems like we're holding the ball now. Philosophically, I have a big problem with how this came out. Looking in, coming into the board, it seemed very clear to me that there was an intent expressed by the board in the original budget for this not to happen. And that budget came out with it happening. And then there was another vote that failed basically procedurally because there weren't enough people here. But now we're here, right? Mm-hmm. So, we have a practical matter. So I guess we're looking at two things. One, you already mentioned, what can we do to ensure this situation is not a permanent solution on the backs of our library media specialists moving forward? And then what can we do this year? Because in my mind, if you're running the library, that's one job. That's a job. And then you're also teaching 2 classes. That's like part of another job. So I feel like we're adding almost, another part of a position onto these people. Is what can be done in any way to reduce their overall workload to kind of bring them back into line with the workloads of their peers that are doing one job?
I don't have an answer for you. And so if I had a solution for you at this time, I'd be bringing you a solution other than a list of issues and problems. And I do want to recognize the fact that these considerations and implications are fairly kind of one-sided. You're not seeing the other side of the impact that it's having on the library and what it does to students not being in there. So I recognize that, and that point is well taken. I think in speaking with principals and getting feedback from schedulers and identifying if there's a way to, not to relieve from classes, but there are other areas to relieve. I don't know the answer to that, so it might be premature, but it's something to consider.
Ms. Pumphrey.
Just a comment after hearing the other board members' comment. I just wanted to reiterate that my concern with this the whole entire time was the same as Mr. Fitzpatrick mentioned, that our intention of a board, as a board, regardless of my vote on the motion, that motion passed. And so once a motion passes, it's the board's motion, and that's our intent, that's our decision, regardless of how we voted individually. And I think we discussed previously that our intention was for this to be presented to the county executive without an additional ask. But to find that funding somehow or another throughout the budget that was presented to the county executive, and that wasn't done, and that's unfortunate. But I did want to mention that because I do think we need to pay attention to that moving forward with our future budgets, whether it's the way that we present our motions in our budget deliberations or the formatting of our budget. We just need to make sure that's clear so that our intention as a board is met, because it is our budget. It's the board's budget. We say that over and over, but we don't always take that, I think, as intentionally as we should. And unfortunately, our newer board members weren't here for part of those discussions, and even for that vote. So I'm not sure they can necessarily understand the full implications of what our intentions were. So that's why I'm commenting now about it. And like I said, we have had these prior discussions, but I wanted to comment on it again because, you know, to quote someone, by changing nothing, nothing changes. So we need to make sure that we change our procedures moving forward to make sure that our true intentions as a board when we present the budget are what we intend. Thank you.
Mr. McMillian.
Mr. Young, I have a motion to make. I move that Baltimore County Public Schools, and I'm going to send this in the chat. It's been typed in the chat for a while. You should have it now. I move that BCPS reallocate up to $1.25 million from the FY 2027 fund balance with the understanding that the library media specialists will be fully funded in the 2027-28 operating budget to fund library media specialists, eliminating the 2 required classes and any additional instructional assignments, including advisory, and our secondary schools. And where possible, utilize excess teachers who are not assigned teaching positions to relieve the library media specialists of these additional classes and advisory responsibilities.
Is there a second?
Second, Stileski.
Mr. McMillian, would you like to speak to your motion?
I want to start by saying, you know, I'm probably the oldest person in this room, maybe next to Dr. Bosch. But, and him and I are friends. I'm not sticking him out. But we can't keep pushing things down the road. It's my strategy. And it's based upon where I am in my life. You know, we've got to this is kicking the can down the road. Next year, we're going to do it. And I understand it's a lot of work. I understand it's work on the principles for scheduling. I understand it's changing schedules. I understand that coming from a teacher that taught in high school for 25 years. I didn't schedule. I didn't have that responsibility to schedule. But this can be done. And we're a large system. We've got a lot of really smart people in this system. They can do this work and get this done. But we have to make the decision. And back to the money piece, we passed this we passed it. And the way that, you know, and they could say that it was the way I worded it, okay, I'll accept responsibility for the way I worded it. But it was an interesting process that I learned from greatly. But I think that these people deserve this. And they're experts in their field, and the kids deserve it. And nobody else in that building can do what they do, and they need to be in the library and do it. And not teaching someplace else in addition to the other responsibilities they have. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Ms. Pumphrey?
I just have a clarifying question. So this mentions the 2027-2028 operating budget, but your intent is for this to be implemented this year, correct, Mr. McMillian?
My intent is to use the fund balance money, the 1.25, to fund it for this year, if it's needed.
Thank you.
And then the understanding is that it will be in the budget for 27-28. And it won't have to use the fund balance. And that was another thing about the presentation. They used the fund balance and kept carrying it out. So one year it was 3.5, next year was 7.0, the next year was 10.5, and then it was $14 million. We weren't using that kind of money out of the fund balance. It was a one-time thing. I'm sorry I get excited.
Thank you, Mr. McMillian. Ms. Hen?
Thank you, Vice Chair Young. Before we vote on Mr. McMillian's motion, I'm curious as to what certificated staff are in the system that could possibly cover these classes for our LMS. And I'd be interested in Dr. Heiser getting us that information. And I'm open to all suggestions and thinking outside the box, looking at central office staff, looking at schoolhouse administrators, looking at all possibilities, because I don't know that we've explored that. And maybe we have, maybe we haven't, but I think there could be opportunities for certificated staff that aren't normally in our schoolhouses to teach. But it's an idea I'd like to explore.
Well, thank you for that request. So what I'd like is if you could, and I know you will, put that in writing so that I have specifically what you're asking. And I'll review it. I just off the top of my head, I will say I would really advise against certificated employees at central office. I will say, although there's some perspective that it's, we've some sort of huge central office, there have been tremendous cuts. You're gonna see the impact of central office being cut. So I'm hesitant on that. It's not to say that you'll get the information, and so that would be point of clarification there. And I also have another point of clarification from Mr. McMillian, who made the motion, and that is or point for the board, if we cannot find the teachers from excess or from new teachers, is the solution to move those students or into other sections where class sizes for teachers will increase dramatically. And so I'm not saying that to put you on the spot. I'm just saying I don't want it to come back when we have to implement this. If the vote is yes, the vote is yes. But if we have to implement it, that's one of the ramifications that could be a real, could be a reality. So I just kind of make sure we're really clear on the possibility that if Science 8 teacher can't be found and we have to move a section in 1A in this middle school of Science 8, and we're going to move those students, we can't find a teacher, and we don't want to put a non-certified teacher in Science 8, we know the ramifications there, we'll take those students and we're going to split them up wherever the other Science 8 teacher is, and those class sizes will go up. So just something to consider, and perhaps I'm seeing it wrong, and if I am, I'm sure I'll get the emails, and somebody can point that out, and I'm open to that too, because I'm not perfect. Thank you.
Ms. Thornton?
Thank you, Chair Young. I just want to say that, I wasn't a part of the previous conversations, and I can tell that this is a very passionate and sensitive subject. But through the conversations that we've had throughout the evening, I think it's important for us as a board to understand that when we're asking to place these motions, how we're putting strains on the infrastructure and administration, as well as staff and students in the building. We start school, teachers, I think the 24th, students come in on August the 31st. And I know that we've talked about fund budgets and we've talked about scheduling, but there is a lot that goes into the operations and the functions of a school building. And I think that some of these conversations that we've had in reference to the librarians, and it's very unfortunate that they'll have to teach extra classes, as well as the conversation we had about the Wilson program. I think that we're going to put a huge strain on some of the schools that have already planned. Planning typically starts at the end of the school year for the upcoming school year. And there's going to be a big strain on budget, operations, coverage, consistency for students, and substitutes that we, if this motion passes, that may have to cover classes. And I just think that when we're making motions and we're voting, we have to take those things into consideration. Just for now. I'm not saying that it has to be a permanent thing, but I do think that with some of these motions that have been presented this evening, we need to take into consideration how we're going to put a strain on schools and students and other staff members who may have to cover because we don't want library media specialists covering the building. So I think that we need to take those things into consideration. Thank you.
Mr. McMillian, one clarification on your motion. You say from the FY 2027 fund balance. Do you actually mean the FY 2026 fund balance?
I didn't hear the first part of your statement.
In your motion, you stated you wanted the 1.25 million from the FY 2027 fund balance. Do you actually mean from the FY 2026 fund balance? The 20.
I don't care wherever the money comes from. If it's this money in the next couple months, or if it's in the fall, spring money, or the late winter money, I don't care. You want to make it 26, make it 26.
Okay, just because the FY 27 fund balance doesn't really exist yet, because that's going to be the leftover from the 27 year.
Okay, like 26.
Okay. Ms. Stileski.
Thank you. Yes, and thank you to all the board members for the comments. And I agree with everybody. This is just unfortunate. And but you know, we have heard from so many library media specialists about the strain. And I can't remember which board member commented, but it's a 1.0 full-time library and media specialist. And then the second component of their job is teaching 2 classes, planning, data collection, attending the meetings with the teams and so forth, and attending IEP and 504 meetings, and duties and advisories and everything else. It's almost unsustainable. You know, there was one year that I taught 3 class periods instead of 5, and I was still working really the same number of hours per week. Sure, it was a little less grading, but you know, the workload of teaching is just this general workload, and I really just feel for every library media specialist in this system. This is just a very, very unfortunate predicament. Thank you.
Ms. Henn?
Thank you. Just a quick comment. We continue to ask our colleagues in the schoolhouse to do more and more and more. And these are the folks that have direct contact with our students each and every day. And we're asking our library media specialists now to take on yet another job in addition to their full-time job. So my suggestion to look at others, both within central office and elsewhere, to ask them to take on some of this responsibility, to shoulder some of this fiscal constraint. And I know, as Dr. Heiser said, we've made substantial cuts in central office. That I'm not arguing that point. I know we have, but that's important too. We need to spread that that responsibility around and not continue to ask our schoolhouse colleagues to shoulder all of it. So I would like to ask Mr. McMillian if he'd be willing to table his motion and allow Dr. Heiser to look at what staff exists to be able to cover these classes. We're talking about 50 library media specialists, 2 classes each. Do we have the capacity to cover even half of those internally, and perhaps that 1 million becomes 500,000, some hybrid approach. And I appreciate Board Member Thornton's comments. We don't have a lot of time, but perhaps we have some capacity to help shoulder some of the burden that we're asking our library media specialists to bear. Thank you, Vice Chair Young.
Thank you. Mr. Baji.
I would just like to ask do we fully believe that 1.25 million is the appropriate amount of money for this ask? Because we've thrown out a lot of different numbers tonight and in the past, and I'm just not sure if this is something we should be voting on tonight, if we're not 100% sure that's the appropriate amount of money that we would need for this. And if it's not, would those students not end up having a teacher for their class and end up in an overflow class, and the class sizes would be increasing? So I think the amount of money is just unclear right now.
The math is mathing for me in terms of the 12.5. With that said, could it be more? I think yes, it could be more than that. And the reason it could be more is because of if you pick up, they're not full-time people, right? They're not going to be. They're going to be part-time people if they exist. I don't think they exist. But if you do, you're now paying mileage, and you're you know, so that's a big piece of it, this mileage piece and being able to get around to all the schools. So I think we have great people. I think we have great schedulers. I think they do tremendous work. I had mentioned that 95% students are scheduled. There's a reason that 5% still exist. And those schedulers are working to get the 5% scheduled with conflicts. If you've ever had a conflict, have you ever had a conflict in your schedule?
Yes, and
Yeah,
most students at my school do.
Exactly.
At all schools.
Yep, they do. Thank you. So I bring that up, and I'm not in favor of, again, we look at it, it's the request of the board to look at who in central office. I'm not in favor of that strategy. I think it would have an impact, actually a direct impact on schools and the support we could provide schools. I also am not in favor of kicking this can down the road even more and voting on it later. I mean, I didn't want this to come up again, or, you know, but I'm put two things on the table tonight, this being one of them. Nottingham is the next one, and I want them off the deck and fixed. I don't want to keep doing it, and we're 3 weeks away from school. So delaying the vote, in my opinion, and this is tough on everybody, so I don't think that's a good option. Thank you.
Ms. Pumphrey?
So the strain and implications that were mentioned, I totally agree with that, and those things are unfortunate. And it's what makes this vote on this motion very difficult for me, because I understand that. However, with our prior motion, I feel like the will of the board was not met, and so weighing those two things is what makes this so difficult. And I think that often we're placed in that situation as a board until we stop doing that, it's going to keep happening. Our will is not going to be met because we're thrown at these things at last minute or any other situation where we feel like our hands are tied and we can't do anything else. And we shouldn't feel like that as a board. And so that's what makes this so difficult for me, because also when I think about what's best for our students, I don't want this to affect them. So ideally, what I would like to see is, you know, for Dr. Heiser to be able to look at this and do as much as he possibly can without this motion, to see if we can make this happen. But I guess we would still need the motion for the monetary part of it. But as far as assigning teachers and making sure that if we look for excess teachers to see if, or we'll look outside of the box to see if these positions can be filled. I'd like to find a way, or find a way like out of the box situation to try to make this work without affecting our students when it comes down to it, and when we have such a short amount of time between now and the start of school. I'm not quite sure how to do that, but that's the thought process that's running through my mind, and that's, you know, what's weighing on me when making this decision.
Ms. Dominowski?
I'm going to be brief. I don't think whatever we do right now, it's going to affect the students and our teachers, probably not in the way that we want it to. We have to weigh what's going to be worse for our students and our teachers right now. And I think Dr. Heiser did his due diligence. He did the research. He looked into it. He's giving us all his information. And right now we have to make the decision, is what is best for our students and our teachers. Is it to start over again, throw this back and try to find and fix it? He's taken the time. He's put it out there. I agree with, like, we can't keep kicking the can down the curb, but we also, you know, we have to just do what's best for our students right now. And it sounds like he's telling us what he thinks is best, and we just have to believe him or not right now.
Mr. McMillian. Mr. McMillian.
I don't think my time starts until I start speaking. Mr. Burns told me I have 43 seconds. I'm going to defend myself. I'm not shallow enough that I don't look at ramifications. If anything about me, I overthink everything. And that's my problem. The teachers are the boots on the ground. We need to start listening to these people, and they're where the work is being done. And whether it's academic performance or whatever it is. And we're not listening to them. We haven't been listening to them. This is an opportunity to say, hey, we support you. And I believe in it 100%. And we've got to take a stand in life. And that's my opinion. Thank you.
Ms. Thornton?
I would like to make a motion to call the question, please.
Is there a second?
I would like to make a motion to call the question.
Is there a second? Okay. Ms. Frimpong?
In looking at people, have we considered our substitutes and something that our substitutes could fill in specifically for like this assignment to take those 2 extra classes?
I'd have to get back to you on that. I can't speak to substitutes. I just, I certainly know other school systems. I don't think it's different here. Substitutes are hard to come by. We know the reliable ones that come each and every day to our schools, but we're always looking for more. So I can get you more information on that, Ms. Frimpong, just around substitutes. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, can we move to suspend the rules for debate? There's a lot to unpack here, and I agree with Dr. Heiser. We need to figure something out sooner rather than later.
Second.
Move to suspend the rules.
It's a motion to suspend the standing rule on debate.
Oh, you want to suspend the 2 minute?
And this, Ms. Hannah, I seconded it.
Would you like to speak to your motion?
I believe it's non-debatable.
Okay. All right. Roll call vote, Ms. Gover?
Ms. Pumphrey?
Yes.
Ms. Thornton?
No.
Mr. McMillian?
Yes.
Ms. Frimpong?
Yes.
Ms. Henn?
Yes.
Ms. Jabaji?
Abstain.
Ms. Dominowski?
No.
Ms. Delusky?
Yes.
Dr. Savoy?
Recuse.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
No.
Favor is 6.
Motion does not pass. All right. Is there any additional questions or discussion?
You were good.
Mr.
I
Bodge.
do.
Oh.
So again, this is a heck of a mess that we got to figure out. I agree with Ms. Dominowski. We have to maybe have to bite the bullet here. Dr. Heiser, is there any way to prioritize hiring these positions if we needed to start the school year with LMS teaching and replace them in classes? I know we're looking at this point, we're looking at a best bad plan, right? So is that possible?
If there's a solution that comes forward that makes sense and can be implemented mid-year, which is very difficult, I'm open to solutions that won't cost the system more money, that you would have to come back and vote on, and if something makes sense. We've heard a couple of requests right now to take a look at and just get numbers in terms of whether it's excess teachers is one, substitutes is another. Central office folks was another request. So we will keep looking. I really want us to look, because I think it's going to be another tough budget year, but this is a priority, and if we have a shared priority around this, we should put that in motion, and as the budget committee starts to meet, and make sure that we stay true to that. That's kind of my position at this point.
Mr. Baji.
So if the library media specialists are no longer teaching these two classes and it's different teachers, would we still have the students be learning in the library, or would they be in a different room? And where would that room, like where would we get those rooms for them to be learning in?
You just asked a bunch of really good questions at a fast pace that I could not keep up with. That's why you're a brilliant student board member. Well, as I understand it, the motion failed.
The motion to suspend the rules and end the 2-minute time limit debate.
Okay, that
We
failed.
haven't voted on
Okay,
this.
that failed. So I can't speak to those questions. Again, I'd be happy to answer them if you kind of line them up for me. But you can tell already, though, how messy it gets. I mean, it seems messy, the questions you're already raising. So, thanks.
Ms. Gover, if we could, Ms.
Just real quick. Just to reiterate, so if we take the two classes away from the library specialist, and we have to find the teachers. We don't find the teachers, the students don't have a teacher to teach that class.
Correct. There's either no one teaching them, and the problem with dissolving those classes, assuming that could even done in the
Yeah.
master schedule, is that you're placing those students using a very simple, the Science 9 or Science 8 to another Science 8 teacher. And so you're going to, if they're going to magically, but it won't match up that way. I mean, I can already predict a master scheduling situation where it won't match up. So that's a problem. If it did match up, you have a class size problem. And understandably, if you think library media specialists are complaining right now, wait till you hear from our teachers. And if you take central office positions, there could be significant implications there in terms of the amount of support and things we have to provide to our schools, as well as the administrative union on that piece. And just things to consider. Yeah.
Ms. Pumphrey, then Ms. Hen, and we will have a vote.
I'm sorry, that just brought up one more question. I know I only have 15 seconds, but it might be for legal. If we vote yes on a motion that can't be implemented, then that motion becomes moot. Is that correct?
Is that a question for me, Ms. Pumphrey?
Yes, Mr. Burns. Thank you. Sorry, I can't see your face, so I didn't say your name.
I know, I apologize. I don't think there's such a thing as you making as anybody making a motion that can't be implemented. In other words, you can't know that today with your motion unless it's a truly, ridiculous motion, such as send every student to the moon tomorrow. I don't mean to make fun of it because this is a serious subject. If you have a motion that your superintendent advises you, because he is your statutory advisor, cannot be accomplished, then it's an ill-conceived motion, and I would recommend against the board taking it. But motions are made for various reasons. Some are simply made to provide impetus or momentum for things. And I just think the most important thing is to hear from your superintendent and hear from each other, and try not to make a motion that from the get-go, the majority who support it know it's impossible to do. We just can't say today things are impossible, so I don't want to advise you otherwise.
Well, I don't know if that was the actual question. I know we don't know if it's impossible, but if we do that and then Dr. Heiser tries to implement the motion and he can't because we're not going to have teachers to teach our students, wouldn't the motion become moot?
Nope. That's my point. You can't know for sure, but if that's the end result of what you move, it does not become moot. It becomes a board action. You then have your superintendent and team unable to implement, and then you have to address what that does or doesn't mean to you as a board.
And what would that mean to come back? What would that mean to address that? We'd have to do that at another meeting?
No, what I mean is, at some point, you'd have to deal with the fact that you made a motion, your team could not implement it, and therefore the action that you as a board took was not accomplished. I can't explain any better. It's not that nothing's mooted. It's a failed board action, and you'll deal with whatever accountability and record is created by that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Hen?
Okay, I have 8 seconds. So Dr. Heiser laid out the unintended consequences of this motion, being August 11th, the impact on students. I don't believe any of us support those consequences, which is why I won't be supporting the motion. Had the circumstances been different, I did support this motion originally with the budget. However, thank you to Dr. Heiser for considering this. I trust your judgment on this. I say we need to move forward with this and work on this in Budget Committee. Thank you.
Ms. Gover, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Pumphrey?
No.
Ms. Thornton?
No.
Mr. McMillian?
You're up.
Your motion.
Mr. McMillian?
Your vote.
We're voting on the main motion. Your motion. We're voting on your motion.
You forgot it.
No, he can't hear.
Yes?
Doesn't have to hear your answer.
Thank you. Ms. Frempong?
No.
Ms. Hen?
No.
Ms. Jabaji?
No.
Ms. Dominowski?
No.
Ms. Delusky?
No.
Dr. Savoy?
No.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
No.
Mr. Young?
No.
So favor is 1.
Motion fails. The next item
Mr.
on
Chair, I move a subsequent motion. I move that the superintendent provide an action plan to reduce the required duties for all secondary library media specialists who've been required to be the teacher of record for 2 classes so that their workload is reduced by 20% or in a demonstrable manner so that their workload is as commensurate as possible with that of any other 1.0 FTE teaching position. I move this action plan be presented to the board by its September 8th meeting with a plan to be implemented by October 1st.
I'll second Pumphrey.
I'll put it in the chat.
So we have a motion by Mr. Fitzpatrick and seconded by Ms. Pumphrey. Mr. Fitzpatrick, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, as I said before, I feel like we've balanced this budget on the backs of some of our people, maybe disproportionately. It was, and as we agreed, it was not the intention of the board at the time, but that was what we're faced with, and that's what we're faced with now. Looking for some sort of mitigation at this point, since we can't actually solve the problem. I feel like if we can study this, find a plan to reduce their workload, that's the most fair thing that we can do for our people on the front end at this point. The budget for next year will be considered when the budget for next year is considered. Dr. Heiser, if this is an unreasonable timeline, I'm willing to hear that as well.
Dr. Heiser?
I think you said September,
For the plan for September 8th implementation for October 1st.
which is a month. No, it's not unreasonable for me to get input to see if there are any ways to reduce workload, is what I heard. I don't know the percentages, so I think you said
20% or in a demonstrable manner.
Yeah, okay. So
it's really-
not knowing what other workload issues they have related to not associated with being a library media specialist and not teaching, what are the other duties and responsibilities? If it's already been, again, if they have no other duties and responsibilities,
Right.
I'm not sure where that comes from. So, but open to exploring that over the next 4 weeks.
Any further discussion on Mr. Fitzpatrick's motion? Ms. Pumphrey?
Thank you. I support this motion because I think it's a good compromise. I was fully in support of our library media specialists and what we were trying to do with our original motion as a board. It just came down today with what is best for our students 3 weeks from now, and I could not. That's why I had so much questioning about what happens if it can't be implemented, because I don't want our students to go without a teacher. So that was difficult for me. So I think this is a good motion for some compromise, and I'm looking forward to next budget session to making sure that we prioritize the will of the board as far as the library media specialists are concerned for the future.
Ms. Frimpong?
I guess for Mr. Fitzpatrick, I just have the question, what if, and even for maybe even Dr. Heiser, what if after looking at it, it's just, again, a presentation of this is what it is and we can't juggle it, right? So then that there is no implementation, would this motion still allow for the fact that there may not be an action plan or something to implement?
So assuming that something can be done, if we can demonstrate that we've done some effort, I think that's what I mean, I guess by demonstrable. Like I was trying to come up with a number of like, well, it is 20% over. So that was 20%. Demonstrable is kind of the realistic, what we can do. And I trust Dr. Heiser to work diligently at that and staff to work diligently at that. And they're talented and smart and they'll find something to do.
Any additional questions? Mr. Lusky?
Thank you. Yeah, I have a couple of questions and then a couple of like asks in terms of the workload for the library media specialist. So when the new budget was passed, after the county executive approved the budget, which meant that the library media specialist's motion was not funded, Dr. Rogers pledged a couple of things. It was, of course, that the library media specialists in the secondary levels would not have any advisory or homeroom or extra periods, any extras, and that they would have clerical support. Those were kind of the two things. And then, of course, I don't know if plans have been put into place to support that. So that'll be my first question, then I'll ask my second question.
I'll look into whether that's the case in terms of advisory and clerical. I have not heard that, but that doesn't mean that it's not in place from our schools. So I'll have to look into that and find out.
Okay, because I think I really commend Mr. Fitzpatrick with the action plan, but I wonder if you would be amenable to just trying to putting a plan in place as part of the workload reduction, that for the library media specialists that are teaching the two classes, that they would not have any advisory, they would not have any homeroom, which may come with advisory, it depends on the school, and they would not have like the teaching duties, whether it's like, the coverage of classes or lunch duty. So, I wonder if that could be something that you could be amenable to. And yes, I thank you for following up on the clerical support and the advisory. Thank you.
You're welcome. And so I'll have to go back to check. I mean, I guess is there full agreement that the advisory, that there was some sort of a no advisory promise for the LMSs? I don't know that. I mean, if that's the case, I'll work with our team. I don't remember that. I guess I would need to come back to you with some information on both what the commitment was, and I take your word for it, but also what is occurring right now and what is scheduled. And so I would have to know if then there's a request to remove, I hear a request to remove advisory from LMS's workload, and just the implications of that on the school schedule and who would cover those advisories, having done scheduling. The practicality of it, and again, I'm not saying it should or shouldn't happen, I'm wondering how to do that. So I promise to get that information and come back to you.
Thank you. No, and I trust you. And if you feel that would be helpful to have a simpler motion, I'm happy if Mr. Fitzpatrick is open to do some kind of amended motion that's a little simpler than a full action plan and just some guarantees. And it might not be this evening, it might be, in 2 weeks, but just a simple promise on your part to reduce the workload as much as possible. And thank you so much for your follow-up. I know that you will. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Yeah, I just wanted to wrap up by saying, I think most of us that voted no on the previous motion did so because we felt we had to defer to the needs of our students. We have done that. The next people we need to defer to is the other people out in the sharp end, and that's our teachers. And that's the purpose of this.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say that before I vote, I really want to, I don't want to necessarily say give an explanation, but I think that I have several factors that I'm considering. And so one is support of the superintendent. 2 is the budget. 3 is the timeline of the ask. I still think October the 1st is somewhat a quick turnaround time for this action plan. Also, I'm looking at equity for all the staff in Baltimore County Public Schools, and also mainly the students, their consistency in their academics throughout this school year. So I just wanted to provide that note because I don't want library media specialists to feel like I'm not supportive of them and the work that they're doing and my advocacy. But I am looking at broader factors when I'm making decisions based on motions that's presented this evening.
Ms. Henn?
Thank you, Vice Chair Young. I would ask if Board Member Fitzpatrick would be willing to withdraw his motion and instead ask for an agenda item on this topic to allow Superintendent Heiser the flexibility to deliver on this request with the board's trust that he will return with a plan to reduce the workload for library media specialists by a given date that is specified. It would afford him the flexibility without a directive from the board, and we have that as an agenda item to ask for board agenda items without a specific board directive. That way we're not squabbling over specifics in your motion. I support the intent fully. I just question whether a formal motion is needed rather than expressing our trust in Dr. Heiser to do the work.
Ms. Henn? In order to take your suggestion, we'd have to vote Mr. Fitzpatrick's motion down, and then we can bring it in as a board agenda item.
Thank you, Vice Chair Young. Actually, Mr. Fitzpatrick could withdraw his motion prior to the vote.
No, I think it's on the. It's the motion with the body at this point. Isn't
It is. He could. Okay.
Sorry.
Ms. Pumphrey?
Because of that statement, I have a question. If we vote no to this, would Mr. Fitzpatrick, would that be, would you agree to that? Do you think that's reasonable, or would you still like your motion to go through?
I think I'd like it to go through, but I think that would be the next step if there's a no. Right. So.
Ms. Frimpong?
Could we, or I guess could I make a motion to amend that we strike the piece that it be implemented by October 1st, 2026? So it still leaves, I think, most of the intent, and we're able to get the information back. Kind of goes to what you're saying about review. And then I think at that point, based on the information we receive, we could make future motions based on the information we receive.
You can make a motion if you wish to strike it, and if someone seconds it, we can vote on it.
So I would make a motion to strike and that it be implemented by October 1st, 2026.
Is there a second?
Second, Jabaji.
Any further discussion on Ms. Frimpong's motion? Ms. Gover, if we could have a roll call vote.
Ms. Pumphrey?
Yes.
Ms. Thornton?
No.
Mr. McMillian?
Yes.
Ms. Frimpong?
Yes.
Ms. Henn?
Yes.
Ms. Jabaji?
Yes.
Ms. Dominowski?
Yes.
Mr. Lusky?
Yes.
Dr. Savoy? Thank you, Dr. Savoy. Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Gover, if we could have a roll call vote on Mr. Fitzpatrick's motion as amended.
Ms. Pumphrey?
Yes.
Ms. Thornton?
Can I hear the motion, please? The amended motion, please?
I move that the superintendent provide an action plan to reduce the required duties for all secondary library media specialists who have been required to be a teacher of record for 2 classes so that their total workload is reduced by 20% or in a demonstrable manner so that their total workload is as commensurate as possible with that of any other 1.0 FTE teaching position. I move that this plan be presented to the board by September 8th, 2026 meeting.
No.
Mr. McMillian?
Yes.
Ms. Frempong?
Yes.
Ms. Hen?
Yes.
Mr. Young? I'm sorry. Hold on. Mr. Baji?
Can I ask a question? How is 20%, like how are we going to know 20%? Or could we remove that from the motion?
Ms. Jabaji, we are currently in
Okay.
the,
Okay.
so you can yes, no, abstain.
Okay. No.
Ms. Dominowski?
Yes.
Ms. Jalusky?
No.
Dr. Savoy?
No.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
No.
Favor is 6.
Motion does not pass. The next item on the agenda is an update on Nottingham Middle School, and for that, I call on Dr. Heiser.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Young, members of the board. And this item has been put back or put on the agenda to, we looked into this and worked with our team, and our team is here. They'll introduce themselves to present what we came up with and some solutions to the situation. Turn this over to Dr. Mullinex.
Thank you. Good evening again, Board. Nottingham Middle School, we were here to provide an update. I want to start by talking a little bit about the 3 issues that have come up over the past several meetings to make sure we're all very clear that these are 3 very separate, I'll say, buckets to look at. So I just want to make sure we have a real clear understanding. I know the idea of Nottingham being a new school has come up, and would it have been better if we just left the name as Golden Ring, or how does that work? So a school is considered a new school when it opens as a brand new school, which is what Nottingham did. It's created through major reconfiguration, so our boundary study process, and has experienced changes significant enough to prior accountability cannot be fairly attributed to the school. So it really can't be. So we have more students at Nottingham. It was just not picking up Golden Ring and moving it over a couple blocks. We took students from all over. We did the boundary study. So it is a new school. Pulling the name over would not have changed any of this information. Low-performing schools and community schools are 2 very distinct things, and their qualifications are different. What makes the designation is very different, and what resources come with these 2 things are very different. So I want to make sure that we're really clear on that, and one is not dependent upon the other. So low-performing schools, we've already talked about this. It is really designed to highly recruit and retain teachers. The one benefit that comes from being designated as low-performing school, but I do want on record, I don't like that terminology, but that's MSDE for us. The one thing that comes with being identified as a low-performing school is that teachers who work in that school and are nationally board certified receive an additional $7,000. Okay, so the intent of the low-performing designation is to retain and recruit teachers. That's what that designation is. I'll let Ms. Stansberry talk a little bit about community schools.
Yes, good evening, everyone. So community schools, as you all may already know, is a whole child approach to schooling. How are we supporting children while also addressing some of those influential factors that impact how they show up in school buildings? The funding mechanisms are all part of state law as well as eligibility. And so we've gone through multiple iterations of community schools because it has been phased in over several years. And we finally reached the point where the phase-in process is kind of completely done. And all schools that would be eligible at 55% or higher have now been identified. And again, that list is not generated by us, but instead generated by MSDE.
Okay, so we'll start with low-performing school designation. So understanding this, that it earns 1 to 2 star ratings on the Maryland School Report Card, and it meets the criteria in 2 of the 3 most recent accountability years. For Nottingham, because they have not been open for 3 years, they only have 2 years of data. So that is an important part to really mention that. The state resources that come with it, it's retaining teachers and recruiting teachers. It is a $7,000 annual incentive, and when the state designates this, it's a split-funded incentive. So the LEA picks up half, and MSDE picks up half when a school is put on the low-performing school designation list. And obviously, it's targeted for improvement resources from MSDE. So in essence, the low-performing school designation is there for teachers to make sure that we have high-quality teachers and we retain high-quality teachers in some of our most needy schools.
When we think about community schools, as you'll see on this slide, again, it goes back to state legislation. It's all based on poverty percentages that are the same calculation methods used for compensatory education enrollment. Additionally, it really looks at our highest poverty schools over a 3-year period, looking at a 3-year poverty average, and identifies them as eligible for one or both community school grants. Grant 1 is the personnel grant. It's a startup grant, so it comes with a community school facilitator, some required supports for health services, and then whatever funding is left, we provide that to schools to work on their needs assessment and begin some initial planning and implementation of urgent needs. The supports that come from community school fundings are really for students and families and to build a sense of sustainable, consistent communities. Sorry, I feel like I'm echoing. I apologize. You can go on.
Okay, so with all of this information, we're trying to figure out how, because we recognize, and I don't think anyone will argue the fact that Nottingham needs additional resources. Their students, obviously, all of our students could use additional resources. So I think that we all agree with that. So what our next steps are. With the low-performing school designation, we submitted the appeal to MSDE on July 29th. That appeal was denied on August 5th. With that being said, and under Dr. Heiser's guidance and obviously his approval, there are 3 nationally board certified teachers that are currently at Nottingham Middle School. There are 10 that are in the pipeline. We anticipate, based on the data that we have right now, that they could potentially fall on that list, and we're almost certain that they will. So what Dr. Heiser has offered and suggested is that we provide an additional $7,000 to those 3 teachers who are nationally board certified. Again, those are the only individuals that are in the building that would benefit from this, and it would come solely from our operating budget and not split funded with MSDE because they did deny the appeal.
As far as community schools goes, again, as Dr. Molinek shared, and with Dr. Heiser's leadership, we've really been thinking through what are the best possible options. Our team had an opportunity to go out and visit and talk with some of the teachers, as well as with the principal who had shared, and this happened probably in the spring, maybe a little bit before the spring started. The principal shared that he would be using his EDA funds to provide one of his staff members some additional funding to do some community school work, even without the funding. And so with that, we are considering, or Dr. Heiser has approved, that we may move forward with looking at operating level funding to provide $30,000 worth of funding to Nottingham this school year that would allow them to begin implementing some of those wraparound supports for students and families. And we've reached out to the principal, had some conversations about ways in which the community school team can support his school and support his teachers. And we'll also make sure that the funding is used in the exact same way that state level community school funding is used, because we really do anticipate that coming into the 27-28 school year, that they will be eligible. We are keeping an eye on that data. Data is based on October 31st low-income counts, and we really do project that they will be eligible, but we'll be able to come back and give more information in the late fall.
And obviously, they'll continue to access the resources through their feeder schools. So if they have pantries and whatnot, they can access that. One of the things that I want to make sure that we have a very clear understanding is that these next steps are being provided to Nottingham because it is a new school. There is no other school in our school system that is in a similar situation as Nottingham. So we don't anticipate having to provide this to any other school. We also don't anticipate this happening in the future to any other school. So these are the solutions that we have come up with, and we welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions from board members?
Oh,
Ms. Pumphrey?
Mostly just a comment, just thank you for your leadership, for what you've done. And Dr. Heiser, thank you for your leadership in finding solutions for this. The part that was most important to me, my major concern, was that those students who, from Golden Ring, who were receiving resources through community schools, continue to receive those resources, and I can see that that's going to happen. So I absolutely appreciate that. That was my major concern, and I feel that that's being met, and I think this is a great compromise, seeing that in the future we're going to probably have this school having those two designations. So thank you.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes, thank you for the information, and I'm just curious, have you identified the supports that you are going to use or help the principal implement? Would you mind talking about the supports with the $30,000, please?
Absolutely. We had some preliminary conversations about a Saturday school program, also about some after-school tutoring options that would be available to students. A really important part of the work is doing a needs assessment to identify really where the community needs are. What we plan to do is connect them with the surrounding schools that feed into Nottingham who have done a needs assessment and collected some preliminary data, to use that along with their school progress plan data to make some decisions about what's next. We don't want to duplicate efforts. If there's a food pantry at the elementary school, we may not need to put that funding into a food pantry there. Maybe we supplement the food pantry, but then also look at what gaps are existing for the middle school students and address those. So more to come.
Ms. Henn?
Thank you. Thank you both for all your efforts, and thank you, Dr. Heiser, for bringing this forward, prioritizing it, bringing solutions. This is fantastic news for Nottingham, so I can't thank you all enough. Just to clarify, you anticipate for the 28 school year that Nottingham will be designated will receive both designations, the low-performing school and as a community school?
I can speak. We can't guarantee the low-performing school, because we're going to pray that it goes up in stars, right? That's our goal. We want students to be successful. With regard to community schools, yes, we are predicting that they will be designated a community.
And we're keeping an eye on the data. It's all based on enrollment, all based on low-income counts, and so we will continue to monitor.
Great. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Dr. Mullinex or Ms. Stansberry, with...
I'm sorry. Let him go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just forget it.
Dr. Savoy, I'm sorry.
Forget
Please.
It. What?
You had a question?
That's okay. Mine is very simple. I just want to know what the average income is per family.
That's an excellent question. I've never looked at the family income. I can speak to, as of today, what their low-income counts are. And while it's not as high as it was last year this time, it's still very early. Once students come back and we look at the number of students who are accessing SNAP benefits, Medicaid, and also homeless and foster care, that doesn't level out until late September, early October. So it doesn't look the same as it did last year right now. However, if you were to compare the difference between the August of 25 number to the October of 25 number, it changed significantly at that school. And so I am predicting that that will happen again this year.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just really quickly, with starting this now, the school will be basically a year ahead of implementing the full community school, because the first year is usually that, I'm going to say that planning phase, but that'll be out of the way before they're officially designated. So they'll be further along the process.
Absolutely, and we're going to invite their staff member who's receiving the EDA if they would like to join some of the professional learning options. I know they're still a teacher during the day, so that might not be possible, but we do plan to send some of our community school supports out there to make sure that we're helping them with implementation as well. So we're doing as much as we can without adding too much to their plates.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Thank you, Dr. Mullenix. Thank you, Ms. Stansberry.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is information, which includes the 2026 Climate Survey System Report, the FY 2028 Capital and Operating Budget Schedules, and the revised Superintendent Rule 3720. The next item on the agenda is board member comments and agenda setting. Board members, please raise your hand if you have any comments or items. Ms. Delmanowski.
Yes, many people came to the community events to meet Dr. Heiser, but one paraeducator came up to me, and I've heard from a few paraeducators wondering about their placement for next year or moving forward permanently. And if we could get an update on the paraeducator situation as opposed to the adult assistants in the room, where it's being utilized, the adult assistant over the paraeducator or the paraeducator over the adult assistant, how that's figured out, because I know that was something that was recent, to get more adult assistants in rooms where students needed more help, but is it the right ratio as far as the qualifications of a paraeducator versus an adult assistant? Sorry, that was a very convoluted way to get to there, but that was my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pumphrey.
So mine may be less of a request for an agenda item, more of a request for just a report to the board based upon the time school opens. But I would just like to have an update regarding the not the implementation, but a rule for policy 1250. Immigration enforcement and access to school buildings, and particularly if it's possible to let the board know if there is going to be training for teachers based upon the policy before we see the rule.
Thank you. Ms. Henn.
Thank you. There were two capital projects that were canceled, as I understand it, due to funding. One was the construction of a new Northeast High School. The second was the construction of a new Southeast High School. So I would appreciate an update on the status of both of those projects, probably not in conjunction with the FY 28 state capital budget request, although that would be amazing if those were included. I don't think it's quite realistic, so at some point I'd like to see an update on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Yes, I'd like the superintendent to provide a report on the feasibility of reducing the workload for the library media specialists in a demonstrable manner. And I previously had an ask for a report out on the impact of having moved school psychologists from 12-month to 10-month employees. I'd like to get both of those moving.
Anyone else? The last item on the agenda is announcements. As a reminder, please be on the lookout for additional information on our new board meeting platform, Diligent Community, in the coming weeks. The next...
Vice Chair Young, I'm sorry.
Ms. Delusky?
Yes, I'm sorry. I had my hand raised. You probably just didn't see it.
I'm sorry.
No, that's quite all right.
You have an
Would it
agenda
still
item?
be okay if I made my comment?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Yeah, I just want to thank all of the community members that have reached out. I think her name was Monica Monet from Schools Beyond Screens. There were several other parents and that spoke this evening. We've had parents and students also speak about the importance of truly doing what's best for students. And I really like the analogy regarding the microscope and looking at the data and taking the notes by hand without the distractions of screens. I thought that was just a really good analogy, and I really look forward to working with the board and Dr. Heiser and his team to make whatever changes we need to make, speedily but with purpose to make learning as meaningful as possible for students. Thank you.
Thank you. The board's next meeting will be held on Tuesday, August 25th, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. Thank you for joining us tonight. The meeting is now adjourned.
I thought you said October.